An undercover investigation. A man who is a former FBI analyst saying that he's a contracting officer or was for the CIA. He claims that they targeted Alex Jones. They nudge people towards taking actions that they want to see happen, like, quote, chopping off Alex Jones's legs by taking his money from him. He also claimed the FBI had around 20 undercover officers in January 6th, a number that we've not heard before. And this may be a tremendous revelation. Alex Jones says he will be suing the CIA over this because it appears, at least according to the admission, there may be some evidence this is the case. But others say this is a blowhard. He's just some secretary from the FBI who has no idea what he's talking about, who's trying to talk big game to someone he's trying to date on an undercover video. And we've heard that many times before when it comes to undercover videos, particularly from Project Veritas and James O'Keefe. So take it all with a grain of salt. But we will go over the story. The Daily Wire has it. And we'll talk about that. Plus, we have the woman who I don't know what the right word is, acquired Ashley Biden's diary, has now been sentenced to a month in prison. And many are saying, well, thus this confirms what is in the diary is legitimate because it's a single diary. It's not like somebody went in there and changed things. And oh boy, the stuff in that diary is pretty messed up. So we're going to talk about that. Plus, we've got some really funny stories. A former NPR staffer says the company, oh, this one's really good, actually. They got woke, right? But he says they wanted to write more stories targeting Black and Latino readers, and all that did was bolster their white liberal audience. Because that's what we know. All of this DEI stuff is just for white liberals. So we'll talk about that. Before we get started, my friends, I want to say this. On April 9th, 1865, the Confederacy surrendered. And it is the anniversary of the surrender. Not necessarily the end of the war, because fighting still persisted well after this, but this was the official surrender. Lee and Grant had met. And there's some urban legends about how it all went down and myths, so who really knows? But it is also the 1000th episode of Timcast IRL, so thank you for joining us on this night. And head over to castbrew.com to buy our coffee. Why? It's really good coffee. Everybody loves Appalachian Nights. We sell this stuff so quick. We're already sold out of the whole bean. And it's rough. It is. Because we told our distributor, hey, just keep making it. Don't stop, because we're selling too much. So we really do appreciate it. But I beg of you, you must buy other coffees from Cast Brew Coffee. Now, admittedly, we do sell a decent amount of all the other coffees, but Appalachian Nights goes like hotcakes. I guess because it's everybody's favorite. But when you buy Cast Brew Coffee, let me tell you what you're doing. We have a physical location for Cast Brew Coffee currently under construction in Martinsburg, West Virginia. We already had a Timcast IRL live event there about a month ago. And we are planning every month to have a live, members-only private audience event where we will do the show from our Cast Brew location. Y'all can come if you're a member. The goal with Cast Brew, so let me tell you, all of the money that we have made from Cast Brew Coffee has remained in the Cast Brew company and is being used to expand because we want 1,000 physical locations all across the country where people can meet up. And the dream is one day a soccer mom walks in to buy a cup of coffee before she picks up the kids, and we've got TVs on the walls. And what does she hear? She hears Daily Wire. She hears Timcast IRL. She hears Steven Crowder. She hears Stick, Sex, and Hammer. And these are people who should be more prominent, though you may disagree with many of them. This is the other side of the coin. Right now, you go to these corporate chains and they're going to be playing ABC or CNN or something. So we need to create physical spaces where people can meet up and interact, and we can start to dominate Meat World or the physical reality. So the other thing you can do is head over to timcast.com and click Join Us to become a member and support our work directly, because this show, it's only possible because of you as members. And that is very, very important. This show exists not because of the YouTube channel or the super chats or any of that. It's because of the memberships. If we didn't have memberships, we wouldn't exist. So thank you all so much for being members. You make all of this possible. As a member, you'll get access to our uncensored members-only show Monday through Thursday, 10 p.m., which is a whole other show. It's an hour long with callers who call in, talk to us. We do an opening segment. We talk to callers, and they're usually about 50 minutes long. So it's an entirely other podcast with a massive library. You can listen to all of those. And thank you all so much for being members and supporting that. You'll also get access to our Discord server, which is effectively a chat room where you can network with like-minded individuals because, like with Cast Brew, networking is the most powerful tool in winning a culture war. We need people to come together, work together, form new ideas, and grow the culture. So go to timcast.com. Don't forget to also smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and additionally, also important is to share the show. There's nothing else to be said. Podcasts they grow because people like them and share them with their friends. So if everybody who listened to this show decided, I'm going to share this with my friends, I'm going to ask them, hey, you guys want to listen to this show? We would be the biggest show ever, and we would be eternally grateful. So again, smash that like button. Joining us tonight to talk about this and the case against him is Doug Mackey.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
Who are you? What do you do?
I'm living in Florida now. I was a former pro-Trump influencer on Twitter, and I'm currently fighting a case where I was convicted for conspiracy against rights. I shared a meme with Hillary that said you could text your vote, text Hillary to this number, and so I shared this meme. I was arrested just shortly after Biden's inauguration, 7 days after his inauguration.
Wow.
And it's been a roller coaster ride. I was convicted in Brooklyn, New York, in a federal court, and now we're fighting in the case on appeal.
Wow. This is particularly interesting because there was a similar instance where a leftist made a video saying you could text your vote if you're a Trump supporter. And for a variety of reasons, we'll get into the whole case and the arguments there. She didn't see any charges against her. And there are some arguments people have made that she made a video, it wasn't a picture or whatever the arguments may be. But we'll definitely talk about that. So thanks for joining us on this 1000th episode. Should be fun. Phil's hanging out.
Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains. I'm an anti-communist and a counter-revolutionary. What's going on, Ian?
I'm here in Meat World, Phil.
In Meat World.
Yeah, I'm ready to dominate Meat World. So we're on the what is this? The anniversary of the surrender, the end of the Civil War. Just like, so I guess what is this? Tonight's like the metaphor is that we're going to end the culture war.
The story, I'm reading the story of the surrender, and there's just, there's romantic stuff. Grant referred to the stories of how it went down as romance. People wanted it to be this grand thing, but it was like two guys came together, they rolled their eyes, they wrote a few things down and said, okay, and they got up and left. But there's some legends about like, he glanced over at Lee's sword, realizing that ordering them to surrender their weapons would be humiliating, could prolong the war, so he offered them to keep their weapons. And then Lee, feeling the honor of Grant's actions, offered his dress sword to him, and Grant refused. And he's like, "That get out of here!"
No.
Like,
oh, it never happened.
No.
Well, he did tell them they could keep their weapons.
Cool.
Yeah, but then like Lee apparently was like, "Take my sword. You're an honorable man."
They
and, like,
somehow reconciled, man. After a civil freaking war and you reconcile,
No.
that's a big deal.
No, they didn't.
Like they did kind of centralize power, which is a big, some people say the Republic died with Abraham Lincoln's seizure of power. But it is nice that we didn't split up and keep at war until it became a weak, forgotten piece of a continent on Earth.
It'd be like having another Canada.
Almost, yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that would have happened. Like, there's a big, significant changes. There, like the United States probably wouldn't have survived either the North nor the South. There was so many foreign forces that were involved that had an interest in the U.S. breaking up. The Britain and
They'd have survived.
You think so?
Yeah, I mean, look at Canada.
Well, yeah, I mean Canada, but Canada is technically still British. So
yeah,
technically,
the Commonwealth, part of the Commonwealth.
Yeah, I mean, and look, in the 70s, the Queen shut down Australia's government. Mm-hmm. So that happened in, what we consider modern time. It happened in my lifetime.
I have loved this intro, but I got to give it over to Serge, Mr. Man on the side.
Hey, number 1000. Everyone remember the first episode you watched, Timcast? They posted in the chat. I don't know. A lot of those bugs are around on the Tim.
Spinning the UFO for a minute.
No, it's a lot of the little bugs. I don't know. They're all over the place.
Yeah, the stink bugs.
Yeah, let's get started, guys.
The stink bugs are starting to wake up because it's getting warm out. I have good news as well. Is the toad eggs are now tadpoles, and a couple little guys are swimming around doing tadpole stuff.
Nice. Can you get video? Show?
I could, yeah. Not right now, maybe tomorrow. Yeah. But it's fascinating because they start as little black dots, and then they just become ovals, and then part of the oval becomes a tail, and it starts swimming around. It's wild. It's fun to watch. But there's probably like 1,000 baby toads. Anyway, here's the story. We have this from the Daily Wire. CIA officer admits to undercover journalist that FBI agents attended January 6th protest at Capitol. When asked if the public will ever find out, the officer responded, "Nope, and they probably never will." This is wild. An official with the CIA told an undercover journalist that members of the FBI were in attendance at the protest at the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, and also highlighted methods that intelligence agencies use to disempower political opponents. Notably in this, and we will get into this moving through the story, he said that they effectively educated the public as to how to go after Alex Jones, chopping off his legs and taking his money away, leaving them satisfied, it having been done. which is a wild thing to say. But we'll start here. We'll talk about what's going on with this January 6th claim. Gavin O'Blennis, a self-proclaimed contracting officer for the CIA and former member of the FBI, was caught on camera by an undercover journalist with Sound Investigations as he discussed January 6th. O'Blennis claimed that former President Donald Trump incited a riot before going on to say that roughly 20 undercover FBI agents were in the crowd. Quote, "I thought you said there were FBI agents in the crowd at J6. The undercover journalist asked O'Blennis. Quote, "There are. There always are when there's a big protest in D.C., just in case it gets out of hand like that." He responded before going on to say, "There wasn't enough to turn the tide. I'm talking we had maybe 20. You need 1,000 to get rid of that crowd. Just to go through, to observe, to see what they can hear. You know, that kind of thing." The video also shows O'Blennis affirming that the FBI didn't want the public to know that they had agents embedded in the crowd and saying that he personally knows agents who were in attendance. "They work for the agency now," he said about the former FBI agents, referencing the CIA. "Do people know that the Bureau was in the crowd?" The undercover Sound Investigation journalist asked, with O'Blennis responding, "Nope, and they probably never will." FBI Director Christopher Wray previously stated in a congressional hearing concerning January 6th that he was not sure there were undercover agents on the scene, doubling down in answer to Rep. Andy Biggs, saying, "I do not believe that there were undercover agents on the scene." We'll start here and I'll say this. It was always insane to argue there were no undercover agents on January 6th. There are undercover agents at every single protest ever. And if there aren't, they're not doing their jobs. So we know the question is, to what degree did they have undercover agents there? Did the undercover agents have any role in enticing, inciting, or instigating violence? That's what people want to know. And because they've continually lied about it, people are going to start assuming the worst.
I kind of look at it like, I'm trying to get an objective perspective from like the current government. They're like, okay, we got this insurgent guy, this Trump guy who we can't stand. We don't want him to win. He's got a rowdy crowd outside the Capitol. Let's get some guys out there. Maybe let's move it along. I'm saying hypothetically, this would be a tactic you could use to move things along. And you're like, let's just get these guys to break some windows and bust up stuff. And it didn't even get it got a little violent. It did, but I didn't get like bodies on the ground. Like I was talking to my dad about it, and like Jacob Chansley, the shaman in there dancing or singing, probably potentially saved a lot of lives by keeping people really calm, because there was a lot of potential for things to go real aggro and machine guns to get opened up. So like, it really wasn't that horrific as like riots can be in a city's capital. Well, especially a nation's capital.
They don't need undercovers to start violence. So right. I was in Ferguson, and there was a bunch of people dancing in the street. There had been riots. Don't get me wrong; they burned down a gas station. This protest had been going on, and on this particular night, I can't remember which night it was, there were people just dancing in the street. Nothing was really happening. I was walking up and down West Florissant Avenue, and then all of a sudden, a cop walked up and just chucked a flashbang at a group of people standing there doing nothing. Instantly, there was a riot. There was no reason for the cops to do that.
It doesn't take much either. Like a couple of cops push a few guys or break a window and then scream, "Go, we're going," that kind of thing. And that's really kind of all it takes to get the mob moving.
There were people in Ferguson who were not from Ferguson who wanted to just smash and grab. And as long as people were just dancing in the street, nothing was happening. As soon as this cop chucked a flashbang, just underhanded it right into the crowd, it created panic and chaos of people screaming, and then instantly the smash and grabbers ran up to the stores, smashed and started stealing everything, and then all hell broke loose. Mm-hmm. I do not understand why a police officer would do that for any reason. Now, as for January 6th, to bring it back to J6, you don't need undercover people to have started this conflict. Many people have pointed out that it was the police that started shooting rubber bullets and throwing flashbangs at people before any fighting even started, which triggered fighting.
Is that true? Because I've heard that also.
I'm not saying it's true. I'm saying there are people who are claiming, that's what instigated the fight. I'm saying in my experience, I have seen instances where police have done this, and there are people posting videos they purport shows before any fighting starts, a cop throws a flashbang or fires a rubber bullet or something to that effect, which is a guy in uniform does it. The other thing to point out for J6, most of the people who are being charged were not part of the riot. There was a riot on one side of the building. Those people should be criminally charged for being violent and for storming through the barricades and all that. And then there were people who on the other side of the building had the door opened. There's police officers standing at the door. There's one video where the cop holds open the door as protesters walk in. This is not an exaggeration. In fact, it was so obvious and egregious that one individual was acquitted of all charges because a judge said, yeah, that cop's waving him in. And there's videos of cops taking selfies with people. There's videos of people on J6 asking officers if they need help. Tell me what's going on. Can I help you? And those people still get criminally charged.
Yeah, I don't even really I mean, I'm not going to claim one way or the other if the FBI or anybody like we're instigating this thing. It could have just been the crowd got rowdy and they, least worst scenario, they let it happen. They were like, let's just let some windows get broken so we can use this as a, as a casus belli to go after Trump to make sure he doesn't get elected or whatever the case.
He was, I mean,
worst case scenario, they instigated it.
But the thing is, like with the Trump stuff, like it was about the certification of the election. Like it was already like as soon as like when January 6th happened, there was never a question about whether or not Joe Biden was going to be certified, and there was no on January 6th. There was never an option. Like in the real world, there was because they were going to call the National Guard in. Like it wasn't going to be where Donald Trump might. Not
through force, but this one I'm wondering, Mike Pence had the opportunity to send the electors back to the states because of what Pennsylvania had done by changing the election against their constitution.
But they were never going to let it happen.
Who's they?
Like the federal government.
Yeah,
the actual now we're just derailed. It's the federal government. Look, essentially the government's position was this is done. Right? That's the government's position. And they were never going to let that ever change. There was no option. There was no maybe this will work. It was just never going to happen. It was a riot. The people that were rioting were expecting to be treated the way that Antifa had been treated all year. They obviously weren't going to be treated like that because it was the federal government that was like, oh, you're attacking us. And so there was never an option that like the government might actually have Donald Trump manage to get in. That was never real.
And Ian, that was just absolutely wrong. Okay. When asking who is they, you have to say who is they though.
Who is they though?
Okay. But your point is actually was not bad.
Is that true? So Mike Pence
though.
has the opportunity, and he has a duty as the vice president to, if something is up with the electorates, for whatever reason, he's supposed to send them back to the states to do it again.
He could.
He could. Oh, so he can say, yeah, even though it was
not
messed
anymore,
up.
he can't.
Oh,
after this, they passed a bill saying, okay, now you can't.
They passed a bill saying the vice president can't do that. And then they said that was something he couldn't have done. But in fact, no, he could have back before you passed the bill.
Absolutely can. There's a reason why the role exists. It's the craziest thing. These people are zombies. They're in a cult. Okay. When we say the vice president will count the votes, it's because he could be like, no. And it's like, okay, well, then what? He has to. And if he doesn't, you're in an impasse. Then you will need a legal remedy for that constitutional crisis. So Mike Pence, because he's just, I don't know, he's a bumbling dodder, didn't care. He's like, whatever. Path of least resistance, man. That's what this country is all about.
I believe that it was a path of least resistance, but I wouldn't be surprised if people went to it when they're like, dude, I want to play for the rest of your life.
And there had been Republicans who had requested that they, like members of their state legislature who had said, this is improper.
Yeah.
We want to answer this. And Mike Pence was like, nah.
I don't think that it was actually that Mike Pence did was the path of least resistance. I do think that the Supreme Court, by not hearing Texas's case, by saying we're not going to hear this, I think that was where the path of least resistance, because the last thing that the Supreme Court wants to do is chime in on any of that stuff. They don't want to be the reason that someone was elected. There's already those kind of accusations surrounding George Bush from 2000, right? There are people out there that say the Supreme Court decided it. Whether or not you agree with that is besides the point.
I want to add this context. I think it's very important. Kyle Seraphin, who we've had on the show, I believe more than once, maybe not, says, if this confirms so many things you thought you weren't thinking. This guy's my age. He was checking in patients at the VA when I started as an FBI agent, and I was 10 years older than many. In 2022, he was a secretary at the FBI. Be skeptical, people. Geez. So we take a look, and we can see this guy, Gavin O'Blennis, who's in currently at the Department of Homeland Security. Let's see. Does he have his career path? Here we say from December 2022 until the present, he's an immigration services analyst at the DHS. He was at the Bureau from June 2022 to December 2022, only 7 months. Oh, I'm sorry, that was wrong. From May 2021 to December 2022, he had two different jobs. He started as an operations technician and then became a procurement specialist. Before that, he was at the VA. Fair point. Maybe he was just a secretary checking people in. That's fine. But I do think it's fair to point out that when he says, at least according to the Daily Wire's writing of this, he knew people who were there on the ground and they're now working for the agency and that he's at the agency. I think we have a credible source. This is a guy who worked for the FBI. He was an analyst. Call him a secretary. Sure. Would a secretary know about the goings on of FBI agents? Yeah, he sounds like he could and maybe would. So at the very least, yes, absolutely be skeptical, because this could be some dude who was working the mailroom, who knows what garbage he was doing at the FBI. Yeah. Someone contacts him wanting to go on a date, and then he starts talking all this big game because he's trying to get laid. However, I don't think on a date you need to admit to these things, right? So this is kind of the joke that we make about James O'Keefe. Like, James will send, like, some young woman will go like meet a guy on Tinder or something, and she'll be like, ooh, so what do you do for a living? And he's like, I work for the government. And then she goes, oh yeah? Do anything interesting? Ha, let me tell you about all the corrupt actions we take for no reason. Like, you don't need to claim to do corrupt things in order to win someone over on a date. Like, this guy didn't need to say he was targeting Alex Jones. They had undercover agents on J6. He didn't need to say that. I don't know why he would make that up.
Yeah, it's a bold thing to make up.
But also let's clarify too, like, if I can understand if you're a guy on a date and you're talking to someone, I think this guy's gay, I'm not sure, and you're talking to someone and you say something like, I'm very rich and successful and I own very many cars, like, that I get you lie about. You know, like those are Trump kind of lies where Trump's like, I got a hole in one. Everyone knows it. It's true. Trust me. I got to make sure I tell everybody.
The best kind of lies.
I mean, honestly, Trump probably did get a hole in one. I think he was super excited for that. So good for him. You know, I'm very proud. But Trump's kind of lies are like the embellishment of the size or value of his buildings. Yeah. And that's what you'd say to impress somebody. You wouldn't come out. Like, could you imagine if Trump was like meeting with someone was like, yeah, let me tell you how great I am. I commit fraud all the time. Here's how I do it. Here's documents proving it. You'd be like, what? You don't need to do that.
Maybe this guy wanted to blow the whistle deep down and he just did it on a date.
This is what James O'Keefe was saying, that many of these people are very guilty inside and they need someone to tell them they did good. You know what I mean? Like, they did something wrong and they desperately want someone to say, no, what you're doing is good. Thank you for doing it. Like going after Alex Jones, targeting him to take his money from him. I have to imagine that your average person, knowing that they're lying and manipulating the circumstances to destroy someone's life, no matter who it is, might feel bad about it and desperately want to be told you're a good guy and you're doing the right thing because they're guilty.
I can imagine, like, I would go to the Nazis for a second. Like, all the Nazis that would have blown the whistle if, like, James O'Keefe had been around with Project Veritas and the internet, being like, dude, they're taking Jewish people to camp. Like, talking about it and like, whoa, things like that coming out. And then you'd be like, is that real? Like the Reichstag fire? Yeah, we kind of said it ourselves. Stuff like that. I don't know. So I'm with Kyle. Be skeptical. It's a guy saying something. That's all it is. But this seems, I mean, it doesn't seem like it's out of the ballpark. If this guy worked there, man, I just don't know how to verify these people he's talking about that are now at the agency.
Well, let's jump to this next portion of the story. We have this clip from Benny Johnson. Bombshell, he says. Alex Jones confirms he will sue the FBI and the CIA after a CIA agent admitted agency targeted Jones to destroy his career. Quote, I'm planning on launching a lawsuit against the CIA and FBI. I've retained firms to sue for civil rights violations, government racketeering operation. Let's play the clip.
But now that this has come out, this is a FBI agent, a CIA boss. He's a contract manager over large contract operations. That's a boss.
Okay, I'm going to pause right there. I think Alex may be misunderstanding. I don't know this guy is actually a boss. I think he was a contracting officer. So that may mean that he's sitting in an office and he handles who gets contracts. So to be fair, that could be a contracted sort of boss, but let's see what he says.
That's like a mini section chief saying all of this and admitting all of this like it's no big deal. He needs to be subpoenaed by Congress.
Yes.
I am planning to launch a lawsuit against the CIA and the FBI. We have to bring all this out. And right as my bankruptcy comes to a close and right as all this stuff's being finalized, it's really God working here that this came out at this time.
You just said you were planning on suing the federal government. What would a Alex Jones versus the U.S. government look like?
Well, I'm talking to different law firms right now that specialize in this. In fact, when I get off the feed with you, I'm going to get back on the phone with the lawyers. It's obviously a civil rights violation. It's a government racketeering operation using cutouts. And look, I mean, they come after my mother, my father, my wife. In these mediations, they've said, listen, just come out against the Second Amendment and we'll drop all this. I mean, they've done that repeatedly. And they've even said, listen, we're a mafia and there's nothing you can do to stop us. To my face, in front of my lawyer, in front of Norm Pattis. And so they're very arrogant. I mean, these are the sellouts. These are the traitors. These are the people that really love being under the corrupt FBI's wings, under the CIA's wings. They get a thrill. They get to go out and persecute fellow Americans, lie about them, say all these horrible things, and then say you said it, steal your identity, silence you so they can all pile in on you, make movies about themselves with judges and flash bulbs, and oh, we're so great. We went out and got the big Goliath.
So in the undercover investigation video, the guy says that this was a civil issue. They didn't actually use the weight of government to go after Alex Jones. They simply educated the public on the appropriate means for going after Alex Jones, basically educating them on what to do, thus, quote, chopping off his legs, taking his money away. When the journalist asks, effectively, like paraphrasing, are you satisfied? They're like, yeah, we got what we wanted. We chopped his legs off. We took his money from him. He's bankrupt. That seems to be the goal. Now, why would a guy who worked for the FBI in any capacity, claims he's working for the CIA, brag about the things they did to go after Alex Jones? Well, this guy clearly doesn't like Donald Trump. Maybe he thinks he's the thing about these undercover journalists is they always, when they're in these meetings, act like they're on the side of going after Alex Jones, like they want Alex Jones to be gone after, or they hate Donald Trump. Maybe this guy's just saying, oh yeah, we totally did that. And it's substantially less egregious than he makes it sound because he is blowing smoke. He is, talking big smack. I'd say this. You got a former FBI agent and someone who claims to be in the CIA. If it is true that he actually is a CIA contracting officer, sounds like you've got a credible witness statement. And that should be enough for Alex Jones to file a lawsuit and then seek discovery. Yeah, have a court say like, okay, let's get all your communications and get to the bottom of what exactly was going on. I believe a judge should. I don't know that a judge would.
What is your thoughts, Doug?
Well, I was just thinking the Cheryl Atkinson case, and good luck getting discovery out of the government. I mean, that can take a decade. Her case has been going on for a decade.
What's the case?
It's she's alleging, well, there's a lot of really credible evidence that the government planted some kind of spyware on her computer to spy on her. They didn't like what she was reporting on, and she was mainstream. She was CBS News. And so she's suing the government. I don't know all the the intricacies of this case, but it's really and she's trying to get discovery out of the government, and it's really difficult, extremely difficult. A lot of appeals and a lot of stonewalling.
They just kind of want to push it down the road rather than say no, you can't. They'll just say maybe.
Oh, they
you
always
can.
do this. Trying to get documents from the government, they jam it up. They block you at every turn because they're crooked. They're corrupt. They're evil people. Yeah, like Alex is right. They're a mafia.
And dude, they're also disorganized. I was trying to pay my $120 piece of unspent tax from Maryland, and it's like, dude, I can't log into the website. It won't send me my email. So I call the place, like, you got to get your email. I'm like, I didn't send it. They're like, well, then we can't help you. I mean, you can't help me. You don't want my money? Can I just pay you over the phone? They don't want my money. They want me to go mail some check.
No, they want you. They want to have you to have liability. But they want to be able to go. You have an unpaid debt, so now we own you.
Maybe that's a tool they can use too. But at this level of me with just $100, it's like it's just a disorganized system that doesn't kick back an email when it's supposed to, and that's just like the state government. I can only imagine how crazy it gets up there with paper. I've heard that it's terribly disorganized at the Department of Education. I've heard that. Anecdotal, obviously. I don't know why I brought up how disorganized it was.
Because they are. And I think the strong possibility, it's not intentional outright that they want to have a broken system. But having a broken system, especially on things like taxes, means they'll be able to dangle something over your head.
Well, the tax code stuff is like they want to incentivize people. They really want to use the tax code to get people to do things. So that if they can offer tax deductions, so that way you'll do something. That's a means that the government has used ever since the income tax became, something that they've been able to manipulate. They do it to the federal government, does it to states. Like the reason that there's a nationwide age limit of 21 for drinking is because the federal government, the DOT, says we're not going to give you any money for your roads if you don't. And they do that kind of stuff all the time. It is like extortion. The only difference between the federal government and the mob is like the government you elect as opposed to the mob just takes control. But either way, at the end of the day, the boot's the boot, So that's what the government is. It is. The reason the government exists is so that way it can force people to do certain things to keep society together. That's the basic
I think
bottom of the barrel.
we are getting towards the point where people will no longer recognize the government.
Yeah, I was joking about that before the show. I was like, we talked about it yesterday. Like, they say, like, I do not recognize your authority here. But I was like, last night we were talking about that. I was like, I literally don't recognize this government. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's the most powerful branch. Isn't the president not supposed to be able to take us to war? That I don't recognize that ability. That doesn't make any sense to me.
It's not even about recognizing as in acknowledging. It's about recognizing in the literal sense, like when someone walks up to you and says, John, you remember me? And you go, I do not recognize you. Who are you?
Yeah, our government is not, the president has no authority to declare war. That's not our government.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And here we are.
But the War Powers Act says that, he's allowed to for a limited time, as long as Congress doesn't vote against it. Instead, it's literally like Congress voted to give the power to George Bush to carry out war. Congress doesn't have the authority to do that. Like there's nothing in the Constitution that says, Congress, you can abdicate your responsibility for declaring war by voting to give the president the power. Like that is literally passing the buck to the executive because Congress doesn't want to face their own voters. That's exactly what they did. And there's no reason for that to not be just totally thrown out as completely and totally illegitimate. But they just said, well, we're going to do this. And what are you going to do?
That Civil War movie is coming out on Thursday. I guess they say it's coming out on Friday, but the first screenings are on Thursday. And apparently Taylor Hanson and Andy No have footage in the film.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cool.
Someone posted a screenshot of the credits and it's like archival footage from and includes a list.
Oh, wow.
And then all these leftists are super angry that footage was included. And I'm like, well, they were the one filming it. But man, it's on the mind right now. And the reason I bring that up, we had these street takeovers, this one that went particularly viral where a guy's car got taken. We talked about this the other day, but in terms of not recognizing the government, there's two forms of it. One, Alex Jones being like the FBI and the CIA went after him, according to this guy. That's a political witch hunt. That's politically targeting a media personality. The guy even says in the video, well, he didn't do anything that would send him to prison. The guy, the journalist is like, why not, put him in jail? He's like, well, he didn't do anything to go to jail.
$1 billion.
They wanted more than they wanted the GDP of France.
Is this all for the Sandy Hook thing?
Yeah.
That's all for that?
Yeah.
All for that. And so it's a wild case for sure.
Yeah, it is.
The judge, it was a summary judgment, just like Trump.
Mm-hmm.
The judge said he's in default because he wouldn't hand over certain documents. Alex claims he gave everything he had, and no matter what he did, they kept saying nope. And so a judge could just do that. This is what I get worried about. The only group of people right now in this country that are keeping this country together are conservatives. That's it. Liberals do not recognize the authority of police. They want to abolish and defund them. They throw bricks at them. They do not recognize the authority, nor do they like anything about the U.S. government. They firebombed a federal building in Seattle for 3 months.
But I will say not just liberals, because I have a lot of people that consider
Not just
themselves
liberals? What are you
yeah,
talking
well,
about?
people that
I didn't
like
mention liberals.
It's like, you said liberals just then.
Did I?
It's you mean like the leftist kind of this mob movement that's
Right.
this communist attempt. Yeah, because there's a lot of liberal people.
Then I stand corrected, and I meant the leftists.
The liberals, there are a lot of people that are just find themselves liberal and like kind of want to keep it together too. Maybe they don't know how. Maybe they're being led by the media, mass media. Unfortunately, this archaic.
But I stand by what I said. It's only conservatives that are keeping this country together, because if the left took over, liberals would just march in lockstep. So if conservatives at any point simply said, we do not recognize, both in the literal sense and in the acknowledging sense, this government, there's no government. It's over. The left will immediately be like, free for all. They've already been doing it. Roving gangs of unaffiliated politically, taking over the streets in numerous cities.
And that makes sense. That's what they want. They come in with this communist mentality. They want to infiltrate the United States, disrupt it, and then make people on the other side give up because it's so annoying, or they're so frustrated, or
they want to break it apart.
Yeah.
From the ashes of the old, we shall build a new.
They want us to break it apart for them. They want us to do it to ourselves.
No.
I think
they want to just break. And so conservatives, Trump supporters, are desperately trying to make America great again. And so what happens then is you have this corrupt FBI and CIA, hyper-partisan political communist faction, and it is the Trump supporters who recognize them as legitimate. The left doesn't recognize any of the government. They don't care. I mean, they went to Atlanta, broke into a police city, like this massive territory, firebombing construction equipment, burning down private homes, flipping over vehicles. They do not recognize the authority of this government. And then you have Trump supporters who the police show up. The journalist will put his hands behind his back, be put in cuffs and shackles, and he will march politely to the court where he'll be railroaded. If at any point
the term anarcho-tyranny.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
If at any point in this country, and this is what I fear, conservatives just start saying things like, there's no government anymore, and they start acting the way the left does, then the United States will cease to exist. There will be a faction of a violent, you call it a mafia, I guess. I would call it the enclave. I think that's the best way to describe it. For those that aren't familiar, in the Fallout series, after a nuclear war annihilates everything, remnants of the U.S. government form a group called the Enclave, which is the descendants and technology and weaponry, the continuity of U.S. government. But no one recognizes them other than they are a warring faction.
In Star Wars, it's called the First Order.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's the leftovers from the Empire.
That's right. If the conservatives simply start saying, you have, and it is happening to a certain degree. We've seen certain things like the Bundy standoff. Mm-hmm. We've seen things now with Second Amendment sanctuaries. The left starts this thing where they say, and it's liberals too, we're an immigration sanctuary. We're not going to comply with federal law. New York, California are sanctuary states. Law enforcement is barred from working with the federal government. This is the makings of dissolution of the federal government. The conservatives, for the most part, just march in lockstep with the federal government and say, well, you know, they're the government, even when they do bad things. But now we're getting two-way sanctuaries. Now we're starting to get Texas defying the federal government. And to an extent, the Supreme Court in certain areas. And now we're getting to that point where conservatives might just start acting the way the left does and saying federal law enforcement has no authority. When that happens, you will have a first order, as Phil calls it from Star Wars. Sure, they've got military power. They're basically pirates. They're just a large faction of militarized individuals. How they get resources will be interesting. They will seize them by force. It will be an occupying force unrecognized by various groups. And this is how you get the makings of civil war. At least I'd be interested to see what happens in that A24 film on Thursday. We're going to see it because there's 5 factions, according to their map. There's, like the Western forces, the Eastern Alliance or something. There's the Loyalist states, and then there's California and Texas as their own republics.
So they're each independent. California's one.
California is its own republic. Texas is its own republic. Then there's like the Northwest, which is rebel, the Southeast rebel, and then a strip through the center of the country, which is a loyalist.
I think if people continue to rely on the federal government, but complain about it and try not to recognize it while they're still reliant on like centralized electric grids and power, water, like a lot of it is municipal. It's localized, but you know, the federal government can cut money off and reroute water sources to states and things. Like if we were less reliant on the government, then we could create communities and stay peaceful. And I don't think it would be as big of a deal. I think the federal government might actually kind of lay off. But if we continue to rely on it, it's going to keep pushing, I think.
I think the issue is the left cheats, the Democrats cheat, and the conservatives just keep playing the game. I mean, imagine you're playing a game of Monopoly and you're watching the other person playing just grab money out of the bank and stick it in their pile. And you go, whoa, hey, you can't do that. And they go, yeah, I can. Do you want to keep playing or not? And they go, yeah, I guess. Well, you can't win. And so what I mean by this is when you look at sanctuary states, Democrats inflate their electoral, their population sizes by bringing in non-citizens and refusing to allow them to be deported. They're doing it en masse right now. And this is going to give them extra congressional seats and extra electoral votes. This is not a legitimate form of governance, but the red states just go, well, shucks, they got 17 more seats than us in Congress somehow yet again. I guess we'll just have to live the way they tell us we have to live.
Someone was saying we brought up those numbers from the Social Security Administration about how many people are being registered to vote without IDs and how many are coming back dead. Like a third of the registrants are coming back dead.
In some of them. Like in Texas last week, it was, I think, what were we looking at? Like 0.2%. Or, yeah, 0.2%.
There's like an anomaly I'll poke where every once in a while you're like, how come a third of the 80,000 people, 25,000 of them were dead?
It was weird. 1 week. It was February 17th in Missouri. 1/3 of voter registrants with no IDs came back as dead.
So that's something they said, send it to Laura Trump. Because I think, is she running the RNC now? Or is she about to be running the RNC? They're like, get it to Laura Trump immediately. This is like big time big news for the RNs. They need to know.
Let's jump to this story from the National Review. 50 anti-Israel protesters arrested for shutting down Senate cafeteria. The cafeteria? That's an insurrection. So they storm into the building. They've got red painted hands. Austin's legacy equals genocide. What is this in DC?
The red painted hands thing, like that symbolizes the blood of Israelis that they killed. Like that came from like Palestinians that had Israelis' blood on their hands. That's what the red is from. So I don't know what the hell they're thinking.
Nothing.
Like that's literally
They have
like,
no
we
idea
got
what they're talking about.
We got Jews' blood on our hands,
probably
and
want
we're protesting.
Fighting stop.
It is insane.
That's about as far as the thoughts go.
Insane.
They're not even thinking that, dude. Look, I grew up with a lot of these protesters. They're thinking nothing. There are organizers who think certain things, but they have limited understanding. It's usually some nonprofit will have some organizers who will come and help them. There'll be donations and there'll be activists, and they'll get this money from a variety of sources, and they'll get stupid people, and they'll say, do you want to feel like you belong? And they say, please, yes, I just want purpose. And they say, then stand next to me. That's the reason. The reason why these people are there, most of these people couldn't tell you about what's going on in the world. And that's the issue I took when we were talking to the one guy, Liam. Shout out. He's a good dude. I like him.
Yeah, Cosgrove's the man.
But I asked Liam Cosgrove, like, how come you know so much about Israel but not other conflicts around the world? It's a legitimate question. I am not telling you you are not allowed to care about Israel. I am asking you why Israel and not something else. There's no answer. And it's because it is just it is a hot issue to talk about. I get it. Israel is a big issue. You are allowed. If someone said, no, you're completely right. I think what's going on in Burma is serious. Taiwan, very, very serious. I can talk to you about, the U.S. shifted its weapons production, its contracting from desert theater to water, Pacific theater weaponry. Yeah, the U.S. started ordering missiles. I am deeply concerned about the U.S. preparing war with Taiwan. Right now, though, in the news cycle, Israel seems to be taking the cake. So I've been focused on them. I think it's a fair point to make. But there are a ton of people like these activists who are deranged. And if you asked them, how many kids died in Ukraine? They'd say, I don't know. You'd say, how many kids died in Burma? Don't know. How many kids are dying over the battles in Kashmir? No idea. You literally don't know or care about anything happening in the world. Do you? Yemen? Come on. Tell me about Yemen. Nothing. Yeah, 100,000 dead in Yemen over the past, I think, 8 years. And you don't know anything about it, but you care about Israel. No, I don't believe it. It's someone who came up to them and said, do you want to care about something? Not really. Do you want to pretend like people like you? Yes, please. Okay, then do as I say and we'll pretend we like you.
I keep thinking about a guy who's there who's like, I'm here because I like her. And there's like another girl. It's fictitious, but maybe.
I'm willing to bet a lot of the guys who are there are doing it because they find some girl attractive.
That's sad, but
often
true.
And a lot of the women that are there are doing it because other people told them it was the popular thing to do.
It's easier than learning to play a musical instrument. Just to show up at the protest rally and tell the chicks that you're down with whatever the
but to be
protest
fair, then a guy shows up to the rally with an acoustic guitar and he's like, hey girls, listen to this one. It's called My Heart Breaks for Gaza. And then he starts playing the song and then they're like, oh, you're saying socially acceptable thing. And he's like, now I'd like to talk to you about the crisis in Yemen. And they go, nah, we're not interested in that. We don't care. Nope.
I was going to say, do you guys think these kinds of protests are even worth doing?
No.
But I'm like, geez, I don't want to shut down the idea of the value of protest because like that's kind of like a world economic. They'd love to have this technocratic non-protest society.
This is all luxury protest. It's all luxury beliefs because it doesn't affect most the people in the United States that are protesting the war in Gaza. This doesn't affect them. This is all them posturing and performing for people. That's all that it is. Because it doesn't unless they're actually Israeli or Palestinian or have family there, it doesn't really affect them,
You know who satirized this really well is Tom Wolfe.
What do you do?
He wrote a book and he described it called Radical Chic.
Yeah.
It's a lot of very wealthy sort of old money involved in this, and they're just doing it as like you said, like a pose, a posture, and it just becomes sort of the thing to do. In Manhattan. He was living in Manhattan, and he wrote a couple books about this. He satirized it really well.
Well, you just said that story, Ben Affleck's daughter now saying that she is in fact a he.
Yeah.
And many people are pointing out that all these celebrities just have like all of their kids are trans and non-binary. And it's just ultra wealthy, affluent liberals desperately trying to out virtue signal each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. I worked for Greenpeace They told me that getting arrested was a badge of honor. That you can brag about it. You get arrested protesting, and then you can go to the other, like, I've been arrested before. Yeah, what for? For protesting for the planet. It's like, oh, wow, badge of honor. And no, it's all just nonsense. That's the things they tell young people who are trying to find something to do because people want to do good, and they trick you into doing bad things for them. And that's what you get with stuff like this. Now, I'm wondering, are they going to be charged with insurrection? And who incited them? I think it was Joe Biden.
How far did it go? What happened?
Oh, they shut down the cafeteria. I mean, that's eating lunch is an official duty, right?
Oh, this is at the Capitol. I missed where it's at.
Yeah, it's the Capitol. Senate. It's a Senate office building where they were eating.
It's the
At
food
least
correction.
trespassing, I think.
They said the Senate can't eat until Gaza eats.
Oh God.
But because it was nonviolent, maybe they won't hit him with trespassing charges.
It's so frustrating hearing stuff like that because like everybody's sending all kinds of aid to Gaza. If it's not getting to the people of Gaza, it's because Hamas is the government of Gaza, and they're not passing out all the stuff to the people in Gaza. Like the people of Gaza are suffering because Hamas is a bad government. Like that's why they were suffering before. Hamas took their water pipes to build rocket launchers. Like they literally are just an absolute train wreck of a government, and that's why Gaza's suffering.
But it was pretty bad before Hamas in like the 90s. It was pretty rough. They were pinned in pretty hard for a while.
I don't know enough about what Gaza was
Are
like
you
in the 90s.
familiar with much about how the Palestinian Liberation Organization, PLO,
Not
Yasser
really.
Arafat's government treated those
Just-
people and how they were?
I don't know much about the PLO.
What's that?
I don't know much about it.
To be honest, I have not studied deeply, but I think I don't know if I put all the blame on Hamas because the barricades, Israel barricading them in and controlling what gets in there is like not Hamas's fault. If they were doing it before Hamas existed, then it's not Hamas's fault.
I mean, kind of. The thing about Hamas is they decided to launch the attack that ultimately resulted in this war.
October 7th.
That's the thing about all this. Is like if you're going to blame somebody for this immediately, the first person to blame is Hamas, and they're still in
100%.
control. And I think
it's an easy thing to
They're
do.
still holding Americans, dude. They're still they have Americans.
No love for terrorist organizations in general, except George Washington, who apparently was a terrorist according to King George.
That is. Listen, the historical way that governments have been created has been through violence, right? That's just the way that it's been. The decision by the international community that is no longer acceptable happened after World War II, and it was because of the nuclear weapon. Right, that no longer is it acceptable according to essentially the UN and the world order. There are people that violate that. When that happens, the UN condemns them, and sometimes there are wars and stuff like that. But generally, the point is because nuclear weapons exist, we can't have wars of aggression anymore. Right. So that's the end of wars of aggression. But that's how countries were created for all of human history prior to the nuclear weapon. It just got too dangerous to have industrial scale mechanical war. Like you can annihilate cities and stuff.
You see Coleman Hughes on Rogan?
I saw part of that. It was
yeah.
great.
He made a really great point. He said Hamas has perfected the blending of military conflict with civilian population.
Yeah.
And so this puts Israel in a position where they have two choices: either engage in a conflict where you are dealing with people who have blended themselves into the civilian population, or stop fighting. And what do? If they stop, they're basically going to declare a carte blanche for all terrorist organizations to start setting up their operations within dense civilian populations for the purpose of inhibiting anyone's ability to stop them. Or they carry on with their campaigns, which results in high civilian casualty. Now, according to Coleman, I'm not saying he's right. He said that, because Joe Rogan says 30,000 civilian deaths, that's a genocide. And Coleman said it's not 30,000, actually. That's the numbers Hamas gives. Israel says 13,000 soldiers were killed. And so if you were to take those two numbers, then you're looking at something like 17,000 civilian deaths to 13,000 soldiers killed, which is actually a better ratio. It's a stupid way, it's an unfortunate way of saying things, but it's a better ratio than the United States has in their campaigns with Afghanistan and Iraq.
Are they considering military-age men soldiers? Because I think the United States was doing that for a while.
Under Barack Obama, they started doing that. Like when the civilian death toll was getting too high, Obama was just like, if they're fighting age males, then they're not civilians. and they started blowing them up.
Yeah, that's like
too many of them.
I'd
Gotta
be
blow them up.
concerned for those numbers. I mean,
Well, either way, there's an interesting point brought up by Coleman in that if Hamas is allowed to operate the way they do, then they'll never stop.
Yeah.
It will literally never stop. And he's making the point that Hamas wants Israel to keep doing what they're doing so they can then go to the world and say, help, help, you have to stop them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like Hamas wants to have, like Hamas, every single innocent person that dies is good for Hamas. So Hamas doesn't have any problem with innocent people dying. Like, that's why they took hostages, and that's why they have hostages, because their religion says if they die and Allah says that they're a martyr, then they go right to heaven. So it's no big deal. It's no problem for people to die. That's cool. It's fine because they go right to heaven. That's the whole scope of it. And people that say, oh, that's not really what they think, or like people that apologize for that type of ideology or that like those kind of religious beliefs, like that's what they say. That's exactly how they look at it. So they don't care about innocent people. They don't care about innocent people dying. That is good for them because, one, those people go to heaven. Two, the international community says, oh, look at how bad the people of Gaza are being treated because there's all these innocent people dying, and they come down on the Israelis. That is a win-win for Hamas. So when you're fighting someone that has incentive to have innocent people die, like not just doesn't care, but incentive, you're going to end up with terrible numbers of innocent deaths because they're not actually trying to help the people get out of the way. They're inhibiting, like Hamas is actually inhibiting people from getting out of the way sometimes. And a lot of the people that are in Gaza don't really have a negative opinion of Hamas. I'm sure there's some, but why
do you think that?
Because there were polls and like 77% of Gazans approve of Hamas
Recently too. Yeah. The elections were won in the 2000s, and Hamas won, becoming the official government. And then and then what the left says is, yeah, but there's no actual elections now. It's like they do polls, and everyone's like they're in support of it.
Sorry to interrupt you, Phil. My testosterone's flowing from all this working out. But I'm interested. So was it like just a poll of 1,000 people though? And then they were like, that proves that everyone supports Hamas?
I have no idea.
That's a big statement.
Listen, Hamas was elected in like 2005. Now, granted, the first thing that Hamas did is said, we're not having any more elections. So like that sucks for the people of Gaza. But at the same time, if there were elections, it is highly likely that Hamas would win again. Like nobody wants to touch the people of Gaza because if the people of Gaza go to Egypt, they're going to undermine the government of Egypt. If the people of Gaza go to Jordan, they're going to undermine the government of Jordan. Like there are a lot of people that are revolutionaries, or at least have that revolutionary mindset, that say we're going to take over the government so that way we're in control in Gaza. That's just the way that it is.
They say like history rhymes, but it doesn't necessarily repeat. And this is like it's this group of people that are being persecuted. Well, you could argue this, and they have nowhere to go. This is the Jews.
Part of the reason they don't have anywhere to go is because they try to overthrow everywhere they go. There was a boatload of Palestinians in Jordan, and they were trying to overthrow the king of Jordan, so he booted them. Same thing in Kuwait. There was a boatload of Palestinians in Kuwait. They started messing with the government, so the Kuwaitis booted them. Like that stuff has happened too.
Did the king of England threw the Jews out of England at one point, and I think it was because they were meddling in the politics. I'll look into that so I can bring more info.
That's
a while ago,
before any of us were born.
It was hundreds of years ago.
Yeah.
But like the Jews have been like exiled from countries over the millennia for reasons, and I've always thought it was just severely racist and stupid. I didn't know why. I've never really looked into exactly what they did or who they were.
But then he started listening to those Hitler speeches.
Right.
That AI Hitler speech is crazy.
Racism was normal until like the 40s. Like that was just like people just were like
it's still normal everywhere but the US.
That's true too. But it's like in the US, it's like or in the West is really the only places that it's like racism is odd. It is the rest of the world is way more racist and has been way more racist forever. So like this idea that racism is like anomalous in the United States or whatever, it's not. I
want to jump to this story. We actually this is from the 3rd. Someone super chatted us, so I pulled it up. This is from the Texas Secretary of State. And this is pertaining to those anomalous voter registrations with no IDs. Now, something doesn't make sense. And I figured this would be the case. But for those that aren't familiar, we have something called the Help America Vote verification system, which shows for the week ending March 30th that Texas had 225,132 registration verification requests. 30,000 had no match. 190,193 provided a match. These are new registration applications according to the Social Security Administration. I want to make sure everybody has the full context here, so I will pull up what is HAVV. They say, to comply with the law, they developed a verification system. States must only submit a request to us for new voters who do not present a valid driver's license during the voter registration process. Now, we have a statement from Texas. The reporting going around was that 1.25 million people had attempted to register in Texas without an ID. Many of them were verified in the Social Security Administration database. What they say, this is from Jane Nelson, Secretary of State. There have been recent and inaccurate reports about the voter registration process and ID requirements in Texas. Please see the statement from Secretary of State Jane Nelson below. Quote, it is totally inaccurate that 1.2 million voters have registered to vote in Texas without a photo ID this year. The truth is our voter rolls have increased by 57,711 voters since the beginning of 2024. This is less than the number of people registered in the same time frame in 2022, which was about 65,000, and in 2020, which was 104,000. When Texans register to vote, they must provide a driver's license or a social security number. When an individual registers to vote with just a social security number, the state verifies that the SSN is authentic. While federal law allows individuals to register to vote without a photo ID, Texans must actually show proof of ID to vote. The 1.2 million figure comes from the Social Security Administration website, which is supposed to report the number of times states have asked to verify an individual's social security number. The SSA number is clearly incorrect, and we're working now to determine why there is such a large discrepancy. So this is where things get very interesting. Why is there a discrepancy every single time? Why is the Social Security Administration reporting over and over again every 2 weeks that Texas has 250,000 people trying to register? Could it be that there is a shadow campaign that Texas is even unaware of?
Yes, it could be. Yes, that is exactly what I think is
And
happening.
Texas is going, we haven't asked for these verifications. This proves it's false. And whatever's actually going on is that it's not going through Texas. It's going around Texas. Yeah. So let me just say right now, we don't know why the Social Security Administration is claiming every 2 weeks 250,000 people register to vote in Texas. So I think that clearly puts it well above 1.2 million. And so we showed March 30th. Now we have March 16th. March 16th, Texas, 227,000. 30,000 got kicked back. 192,000 were found to have matches. 4,570 something were dead. Let's go back another 2 weeks, because Texas only reports apparently every 2 weeks, or the number only appears every 2 weeks. Here we have now with, where's Texas? 224,569. 189,000 were found to have matches. Let's go back another 2 weeks, which would bring us to February 17th. Oh, this is the one where you get Missouri. Where's Missouri at? There we go. With 23,000 dead people trying to register to vote. How does that happen?
Oh my gosh.
That one's interesting,
That's
right?
a third of the people. That's crazy.
Then we have Texas with 219,000, 178,000 found to be matches. These are all clearly distinct numbers. Now, just to show you, if I go back to March 23rd, it's they don't have Texas. Texas only appears every other week. You can see most other places don't have these kinds of numbers.
What if you go back further, like back into the last year too? I want to see these.
Yeah, we've done all that. Pick a year, pick a
Yeah.
date.
Okay. Yeah. Something like 2022. Can you go back that far?
Yes, we can.
What was voter registration like in 2022 in Texas? And I get it. We're coming up on
You
an
got to
election.
give me a month.
Yeah. March 20th. March
March 26, 2022?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
All right, let's see if this is one of the reporting weeks for it.
A couple years ago.
It is. Texas had 15,000.
15.
In the same time period,
Wow.
2 years ago, 15,000. Okay, fine. Texas says, no, this is clearly a mistake. It's clearly a mistake. Okay, how is the Social Security Administration every 2 weeks reporting this massive number? Okay, fine. They hired a new intern, and he's typing in the wrong numbers, I guess.
No. I mean, I'm glad you said that, but obviously that would be very unlikely. That happened three times in a row.
Or maybe shadow campaign.
Yeah, maybe they're. So you're thinking they're signing them, and then it just goes around Texas, like they go through the Texas state for the registration. But then the paperwork just goes to the Social Security Administration?
It's not actually Texas requesting the verifications. It's someone masquerading as Texas to the Social Security Administration. Perhaps the issue is to find voters. Maybe the real issue here is to figure out who's dead, who's alive, and who can vote. And they're not real registrations.
Oh, and they're just looking for people to go ballot harvest later or something.
Yep.
Man, 3 weeks in a row of, or 6 weeks in a row of 250,000.
Oh, no, it's not 6 weeks in a row, bro. It goes all the way back.
So
Come on.
is it counting like 2 weeks? In 2 weeks, 250,000. So are we actually reading?
It may be.
Yeah, something like that.
So here we go.
125 weeks.
So this is February 3rd was not one of the reporting weeks. So we need to go to January 27th. And Texas, 125,000 with 100,000 matches found. So this was January 27th. Let's go back to January 13th to see Texas. And we've got 89,000. So it seems like the number is picking up.
It's ramping up.
So it may be around that number. And then that was the 13th. So then we would have to jump back to December 30th. And what do we have for Texas? 97,000.
So it's ramping up.
Ramping up substantially. Let's go back to December 16th and see what we get for Texas. 80,000. And here we'll do a little sorting algorithm technique, and we'll jump back to, let's say, July 29th. I don't know if this is one of their reporting weeks. Let's see. It is 234,000.
That's a big week.
Yeah, 74,000 had no match. What is this? Texas is saying this is clearly a mistake. I think that's overly simplistic.
Like
Pennsylvania had 94,000.
That's in Texas on that week. It was a fourth of them had no match.
July 29th, 2023, 250,000 people with no IDs were listed as registering to vote. How could the Social Security Administration falsely report this every other week for a year?
I just don't think.
And Texas has no idea what's going on.
I have no idea.
So Texas Attorney General should look at this, obviously. If they haven't, if you guys know the Texas Attorney General, send this to him. I don't know who he is or who they are, who she is. I don't know. They should know. Yeah, we should immediately. This should be in their hands. The FBI should immediately be involved in this. This is.
And they say you need an ID to vote. Does Texas have universal mail-in voting?
I don't know.
Yet. Research.
The Attorney General for Texas is Ken Paxton.
Ken Paxton, get on it, Matty.
There you go.
Let's find out about their mail-in voting. You can apply for a ballot by mail in the state of Texas. You have to be 65 years or older, sick or disabled, out of the country on election day, expected to give birth within 3 weeks, be confined to jail or otherwise eligible. And then you can submit online. I really doubt if this is some kind of manipulation that Texas is going to allow mass applications for mail-in voting. But I really just don't know. I certainly think you'd be naive to think there is no shadow campaign.
Yeah.
Look, there was a lot of effort put into the shadow campaign in 2020. They wrote up a whole piece about it. There was a bunch of people involved, and it's had to make sure that they reinforced the election and stuff. So if the idea that they wouldn't do it again is of course silly.
If we were just in a normal world, and I was like, one day I was like, what? I'd be really weirded out. But the influx of migrants into Texas, like I think that kind of correlates with what we're seeing in the numbers of people being registered. So I'm not saying that they're literally the ones being registered, but there's a correlation there. It's a lot more evidence that something nefarious is going on.
And it could be something going through Texas that the Secretary of State doesn't know about. Now, they said their voter rolls haven't increased by that much. Maybe there are Democrats working in Texas, submitting registrations for verification, and they're trying to figure out who they can get, who isn't registered, and who is who's going to slip through the system. And it's coming from a local jurisdiction or something, and the Secretary of State doesn't know about it. People who haven't been added to the voter rolls because it has not yet been submitted to the state and it's bypassed the state government.
And now they'll know who to register with the state. Now that they see who's alive.
To minimize errors and to make it look like make it look authentic. I think the one thing about this, I'm glad that it got picked up because Texas is now saying that it's an error is great. Because now any anomalous thing that we end up seeing in November, we can point back and say, hey, this was widely known about. And so there is now like, hey, start filing your lawsuits now. Okay, so all the Republican groups need to start filing lawsuits, challenging this. The Social Security Administration needs to be sued for their data. The state of Texas, hey, this could be a lie. Secretary of State could be lying. For all we know.
This is unprecedented, man. I've never been like, what do you do here? We just talk about it, raise awareness.
Well, as I mentioned, it is only conservatives that keep this country in existence. It's like that episode of The Simpsons where the advertisements all come to life. Just don't look. If everyone just stopped looking at the advertisements, they'd cease to exist. But conservatives genuinely believe in the power structures of this country. And again, I'm joking. I'm saying this is actually a good thing because they want to save it. They want to make America great. They want to fix it. They want to get Trump elected. They want to bring in people who are going to weed out the corruption. Unfortunately, right now, the people in government are the enclave. They are beholden to no one. They are accountable to no one. They lie, they cheat, they steal. They are criminals. And Trump supporters just go, well, they're in charge.
Because they don't want to fight. Nobody wants to do that right now. I mean, most people, I don't think they don't want to fight. They want a peaceful society. It's a terrible idea to think that you would ever have to be pushed into that, man. I don't want to fight. We got to do this peacefully.
Well, let's jump to this next story. We have this from The Hill. Woman who stole Ashley Biden's diary sentenced to month in prison. See, I don't know if stole is the right word, but I guess she was convicted. She's getting a month in jail, and I can only say, this proves it! So it really was Ashley Biden's diary, and there is no reason now to doubt anything in it. So here's a woman saying she feels like she underwent some kind of sexual trauma where she was hypersexualized as a young child, and that she may have been molested, and she had inappropriate showers with her dad, Joe Biden.
That was all in the diary?
I got to tell you, I think the sentencing of this woman was actually a play by patriots who are like, we need to give her some time to confirm the diary. And so they were like, look, 1 month is no big deal, but that proves the diary's real. There you go.
So they waited how many years?
I'm kidding.
4 years, and then they charged her?
Well, she's been dealing with this since 2022. They say prosecutors accused Amy Harris of stealing the president's daughter's diary in September 2020 while she was temporarily staying at Ashley Biden's residence in Delray Beach, Florida. The diary contained highly personal entries as well as tax records, a cell phone, and family photographs, according to the DOJ. Harris enlisted Robert Kurlander to assist her efforts, and they each pleaded guilty to conspiracy charges in 2022. Project Veritas, based in New York, paid Harris and Kurlander $20,000 each for the diary and other materials, which the two returned to Florida to obtain. Nicholas Bias, the chief of public affairs for the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York, confirmed Harris was sentenced to 1 month in prison and 3 years of supervised release to the Hill. Kurlander has not been sentenced yet. Project Veritas describes itself as a news outlet, but faced some controversies for its sting operations and sending staffers undercover to record sources. The DOJ raided 2 locations in November 2021 tied to Project Veritas and the organization's founder, James O'Keefe. While Veritas did not publish the diary, another website did. Judge Laura Taylor Swain described Harris's actions as despicable during the sentencing at a Manhattan federal court on Tuesday. The AP reported Harris apologized to Ashley Biden during the sentencing and said she regretted her actions, according to the AP. The DOJ sought a sentence of 4 to 10 months of imprisonment for Harris, followed by 3 years of supervised release, according to a letter sent to the judge last week. Assistant U.S. Attorney Robert Sobelman argued Tuesday that Harris showed a pattern of disrespect for the law and the justice system. Harris's lawyers asked for no prison time, with defense attorney Anthony Security saying she carries the shame and stigma of her actions, the AP reported. Hill reached out for comment. And, the diary's real. Check this out. I love this because Snopes has this story. Fact check. Posts claim contents of Ashley Biden's diary have been verified. Here are the facts. And this is from Friday, April 5th. What do they say? Unproven. It's unproven. A diary authored by U.S. President Joe Biden's daughter, Ashley Biden, describes inappropriate actions taken toward her by her father when she was a child. Unproven. What do you mean unproven? It's her diary. She said it was her diary. We know it's her diary. 2 people are going to prison because they took her diary. And in her diary, it talks about how she was hypersexualized, makes reference to sexual trauma, and says that she took inappropriate, noted taking showers with her dad, quote, parentheses, probably not appropriate.
Go back up to what the top of this. This is very disingenuous, the
Which
way this title, the way Snopes titled this. Fact check, post claim contents of it. So they're saying, so they're saying, is it verified? Is what she wrote in her diary verifiably true? We still don't know. She might have been lying in her diary, I think is what they're saying here.
The idea that somebody would have a diary to the extent that people would go to prison for taking it, and then Snopes would go, but we don't know if she actually wrote what's in it.
No, they know she wrote it, but they don't know if it's true what she wrote. That's what they're saying, I think, as far as I can tell. Which I get it.
They're saying the quotes in question were found in the so-called, quote, leaked pages from the diary, which had been discovered in a former residence and was later sold to right-wing sting operation Veritas. They're arguing that the pages we got may not actually be from a leaked diary.
Oh, well, now that, I think that's not the right argument because as far as I can tell, it's verified. This stuff was in her diary that they arrested the woman for stealing.
They're arguing we don't know it was in her diary. It's just that someone had her diary and said these are pages from the diary, but how do we know?
Is the diary public? Is it published?
I mean,
Technically, the outlet that published the pages made it public, but they're saying, how do we know those are real? Right.
Yeah, good on Snopes.
It's an amazing argument because you can basically debunk literally anything. Yes, the Pentagon Papers were sent to the New York Times, but how do we know the New York Times didn't alter them? Therefore, they're all unverified. And the Afghan war logs, same thing.
Gravity, 9.8 meters per second squared. We don't know. How can you prove it?
You can't.
You sure? Unproven.
Did you do the studies?
I know.
That proves it.
A guy, yeah.
I think you can actually test that.
You think? You sure?
Did you?
Unproven.
I'm pretty sure.
Did you?
You better prove it.
I haven't yet.
Well,
but
then it's unproven.
We
Snopes will get you.
Test that one.
What did you say? What did you say the gravity speed was?
9.8 meters per second squared. It accelerates.
Snopes. Ian claims that gravity is 9.8
meters per second
9.8 meters per second squared
on Earth.
unproven.
Because they'll be like,
And then I would
false. On Mars, gravity is...
No, I would say false. Ian Crossland has never actually done these experiments to prove the actual speed of gravity and force of gravity. Therefore, this is a completely wild claim that he's made without evidence.
I used to respect Snopes a lot in the early 2000s, I think.
Because you were in the cult.
Or were they good back in the day and then they
No.
got bought? Did they get
Well,
bought?
I mean, like,
everything did that. Like in 2000, as soon as the cell phone became ubiquitous in everyone's pocket and stuff, like that's when it really became the culture really kind of changed. There was like Tim talks about how the algorithm started regurgitating the same stuff that the people were responding to. The fundamental foundation had already been laid in schools and in your basically most of society had already been clowning anything Republicans did for almost 10 years before that happened. The whole Daily Show making jokes about anything Republicans said. So they'd already made the entire concept of a conservative toxic, so that way you could just dismiss anything a conservative said. So it didn't matter what they said. So it's been set up to really, delegitimize people that don't fall in line, with the narrative. So.
Indeed.
Yeah, I remember not liking Mitt Romney. It's a little anecdotal, but that was all media manipulation. I was like, I'm not supposed to like that guy.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is...
True, but I also didn't like Mitt Romney because Mitt Romney is not a good person.
He seemed cheap.
But
I never met him face to face.
He was the most Boy Scout guy that you could possibly come up with. He
was Hitler.
He was as milquetoast, boring, inoffensive Republican as the Republican Party, which means the United States, could produce. There was nobody that was less offensive and a conservative than Mitt Romney. And they still said he was Hitler. They said he was all these bad things, blah, 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 blah. And so the response was, well, if we give you the nicest, most inoffensive conservative imaginable, and you still paint him as evil, then we'll just give you the used car salesman that's going to toss his middle finger up at you. And, we're going to run that guy against the most objectionable Democrat that they could produce. They railroaded Bernie Sanders' campaign and all that stuff.
I just want to point this out because Snopes is the most duplicitous, disgusting organization. They say, while there is strong evidence the diary exists, the authenticity of the content of these and other leaked pages has not been confirmed. Just because a diary exists does not mean the images presented by the National File are that diary. Legal proceedings later made it clear if the National File did get the document from Project Veritas. The Intercept reported in 2022
Disgusting.
that a Veritas employee provided the alleged diary to the National File in October 2020 when Veritas had reservations about publishing it. So we know they had it. We know Veritas got it. We know Veritas didn't want to publish it and gave it to National File. Other outlets have confirmed this is what happened. But when National File did publish the claim, those claims could be fake. That's literally Snopes' argument as to why it's unverified. Amazing. We know they had it. We know how they got it. We know that people are going to prison for helping facilitate the transfer of it. And then after all is said and done, and the National File is holding the diary, they posted pictures of fake images. That's what I'm supposed to believe.
Yeah. I mean,
if that's the case, There is literally no way to ever prove anything ever.
No, because it's just we'll just deny it. And
Well, so here's a video of the National File holding the diary and opening it. Well, how do we know they didn't write those pages themselves?
Yep.
My God, and we're entering this age of deepfake.
And that's
people
that's the argument made about the Hunter Biden laptop. Oh, they had it, and you don't know that the Russians didn't get a hold of it, and you don't know that there wasn't information. Information in it was looked like the Russians had done it, and blah blah blah. That's the same argument, but it was still information that was suppressed, by the government, told multiple social media networks don't, suppress this information. So it doesn't. Everyone that's a conservative generally knows that the government doesn't like the conservatives because the conservatives want to limit the government. Like that, it just the whole narrative. Like conservatives are like, I want small government. I don't think government should do this. I don't think government should do that. The other side of the aisle is like, we think the government should do all these things plus more. And so obviously the government is interested in its own existence. It has an opinion now. It's no longer separate from politics. It's very much interested in its own opinion. It's very much interested in its own continuation. So the government, obviously, people in the government are going to feel like, oh, we should be Democrats and we should want to vote for people that are going to decide to do more government programs. It's just the nature of government.
I want to ask. I want to talk to Doug about what's going on with your case now. Can you tell us basically the gist of how it started and where you're currently at?
Well, what you were saying is exactly what my case is about. It's about the government trying to expand its power into the realm of disinformation. They want to use these statutes to crack down on disinformation. So I was back in 2016, I saw these two funny memes on 4chan, and I posted them to Twitter. It said, you can text your vote Hillary to 55429, whatever the number was.
Did you actually make those?
No, I didn't make the memes.
They were 4chan memes.
You found images on the internet and posted them on Twitter.
Exactly.
And now what, they want to put you in prison?
Exactly, for 7 months.
Wow.
For 7 months. And then
so explain the images real quick.
Yeah, so there was just these jokes on 4chan. It said, they have a picture of like a Democrat voter, and it says, avoid the lines, skip the lines, stay home, text your vote, just text the word Hillary to the short code number. And
so we actually have it.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, not anymore. We don't. It's gone.
No.
Yeah,
but for $6, you might have access. Just
anyway,
kidding.
continue.
Yeah, you were saying.
Yeah, so that was the meme, and then so I posted it on Twitter. Fast forward 4 years, almost 5 years, and they knocked on the FBI came, knocked on my door at 7 a.m. down in Florida,
Back again, damn.
and I was arrested. I had no idea what I was being arrested for. They took me to the courthouse, to holding cell in West Palm Beach, and then they, after the hearing, they took the leg irons off me and said, you're free to go. They gave me the criminal complaint that said, we're charging you with a conspiracy against rights, a conspiracy to injure, oppress, threaten, or intimidate people in the exercise of their civil rights. So this happened in 2021. I went to trial in 2023, and a whole bunch of crazy stuff happened. They had a confidential informant from a group chat that I was in, and they allowed him to testify anonymously, which usually is reserved only for, like, let's say ISIS or the Mexican drug cartels. They allow sometimes witnesses to testify anonymously. They allowed him to testify anonymously, not because of any credible threat, but because of the possibility that he might face harassment online. And so they had this guy up there who I never spoke to anywhere. I never met the guy. He was 1,000 miles away, wherever he was. And we were in a group chat together. We never spoke, even in the group chat otherwise. And they asked him, and he just went up there and said whatever they wanted him to. They said, did you have a silent conspiracy to injure voters in the right to vote? And he said, oh, yes, we had a silent conspiracy, which directly...
conspiracy.
A silent conspiracy over the internet with someone I've never met. And the guy also the microchip guy, the guy's name is Microchip. Yeah, he just said exactly whatever they wanted him to say. It was really unbelievable.
Was indeed you were in Brooklyn,
Yeah, I was in Manhattan,
Manhattan.
and they brought the case in Brooklyn. That's an issue for appeal, which is really crazy. So obviously, the founding fathers, they didn't want there to be universal jurisdiction for cases because a lot of times the colonists were being dragged back to London
Yeah.
and being tried, thrown in the dungeon and tried for crimes, whatever the crime was. And so the founders wrote in the Constitution, you have to be tried in the state and district in which the crime was committed. So at trial, they argued that the crime was committed in Brooklyn because the tweets went over the internet wires on the bridge, like the 59, the Holland Tunnel or whatever, because Brooklyn and Manhattan, they share jurisdiction over the waterways. So that was completely insane. But the bottom line is that they said that I was part of a conspiracy, even though I wasn't even in these group chats when these people were making these memes. So it's kind of like a guilt by association thing.
That's crazy.
I testified at trial. I said, obviously, I didn't think anybody would look at this meme and think that it was real because they have to prove intent as part of a conspiracy. And come on, it's like, do you really think that anybody would believe that? I mean, it's
You
really...
didn't even make it.
Exactly. I didn't make it. They introduced all this circumstantial evidence. All the evidence was circumstantial. And the jury deliberated for 3.5 days before, on Friday afternoon, they came back with a verdict. So I was thinking, we were going to get a hung jury because it's going to be really difficult to get an acquittal. I think that's why they brought the case in Brooklyn, because they don't like Trump. So we have the case up on appeal under the First Amendment because look at the statute: injure, intimidate, oppress, threaten people in their right to vote. What does that have to do with posting a satire or parody online? Even if you're going to say, well, this was a legitimate attempt to try to disenfranchise people, is it really covered under this statute that was written basically so that roving gangs can be prosecuted if they go and beat up African Americans as they're going to the polls or whatever? So
The jury came back and said guilty.
the jury came back after the jury was hung twice. The third time they came back guilty because under the federal system, the judge can say, well, you need to try harder. We don't want you necessarily to change your deeply held conviction. But, we spent a lot of time and effort and money investigating this case, defending this case, whatever. So go back and try harder. And you could see them, they're squirming around their seats. They felt like they were committing a crime or something.
They want to go home. They don't
They
care.
did want to go home.
Yeah, they want to go home.
Well, I mean, the first two, you got a hung jury 2 times, and the court's like, oh, go back there, and in a questionable, constitutionally questionable case. Obviously, if your appeal doesn't go through, would you appeal to the Supreme Court?
Yeah, we will go to the Supreme Court if we don't win at circuit.
What was?
But are they going to put you in jail in the meantime?
So so at the sentencing, I got 7 months, and my attorney said, well, we're going to move for bond, and the judge denied it outright. So we went to the circuit back in December, and they actually overturned that decision. So I'm out on appeal. I was supposed to go to prison on January the 18th, and
Unreal.
my son had a surgery on the 16th, so that would have sucked. But so I'm out on appeal. I'm out on bond, and we just argued the case on Friday in front of the Second Circuit, a 3-judge panel. And it's hard to say which way it's going to go at this point. We have a really strong argument on venue, on the First Amendment, on due process, because, like you said,
But if they grant appeal, it seems like, so you're saying venue, due process. If they say venue, then it sounds like the feds just bring the case back and they change venue.
that's a good question. Yeah, depending on how they rule, they could either bring the case back to the same district and try to prove venue. We have this jury instruction argument, or they could. It's hard. I don't know exactly what the law says because there is a statute of limitations. So I don't know if this case is dismissed in that district. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to bring the case in another district or if they would want to. It's an open question. So I'm not exactly sure what will happen.
You're talking about proving intent. What was your intent?
So it's a joke. I mean, there's multiple elements of it. Obviously, it's satire about, just the requirements that there are to vote. For example, one side of the political aisle doesn't want people to have to even show an ID. So the idea is, it's funny, like this is what they would do if they had the power.
They literally did almost the exact same thing 4 years later.
4 years later,
mailing the ballots.
Not
to
just that,
people's
but there was a woman who made a
houses.
video.
Yeah.
What was it? There was a woman. She told Trump
Unreal.
supporters to go text to vote.
Right, exactly. There's a comedian, which tells you exactly what this is. It's
Did
not
you guys
real.
did you guys present that in the case?
We were allowed to introduce that into evidence. And I was on the stand. My attorney was like, "What is this?" And the judge didn't allow me to like talk about what it was, but we did introduce it into evidence. We were allowed to.
The jury was allowed to see it.
The jury was allowed to see it.
It didn't have a phone number on it, which was the difference.
It didn't have a phone number
And
on
it doesn't say paid for by the Hillary campaign, things like that.
Right.
That was the argument the left made when they were defending the idea that you could make. I mean, here first of all, you don't even have Democrat followers. You're a Trump influencer talking to Trump supporters, and none of the Trump supporters are going to vote for Hillary. It's an absurd argument.
Yeah. One thing they did say though, oh, well, he used hashtags. So that's targeting. And it's like, if anybody was online back then, basically every troll is using the Hillary Clinton hashtags. If you had clicked on the hashtag, it's just a flood of basically nonsense. And my attorney did make the argument, it's kind of obvious, you know, you're not supposed to believe everything that you see on Twitter. I mean, that's pretty obvious. Not to mention, anybody can Google how to vote, and in 2 seconds, they're going to figure it out.
What was these 4 things you said? Threaten. There were 4 things.
Yeah. Injure, intimidate, threaten, or oppress.
Injure, intimidate. So is injure like a legal phrase? Oppress. Like
Yeah, it's an open question. I mean, there is some case law about that. Now, one of the reasons why we're appealing the case is because what they say, the word injure can mean to hamper, to make difficult. So if the government's going to say that this statute can be used to prosecute deception, then that opens up a whole can of worms, especially if you're going to define the word injure as to make difficult.
Interesting.
So what we say is that if I told you, hey, look, don't vote because it's going to rain tomorrow and it's actually going to be sunny. Okay, is that a federal crime? You know, that kind of thing.
And if you're like, you know, Donald Trump did this thing, so don't vote for him. Like, is that a crime?
Right, exactly.
Or what if you said, if you vote for Donald Trump, he's going to arrest you for being gay.
It's kind of like
right, exactly.
That's deceptive, inhibiting
like
them, threatening them with injury.
Right.
It's acceptable for one political party and it's unacceptable for another.
Well, that's why it's in New York.
It's, you know.
I mean, is it public where you were at the time when you posted it?
Yeah, I was in Manhattan at the time.
Oh, you were in Manhattan.
That's a separate district from where they brought the case.
So they said the tweet went over the line into Brooklyn?
Yeah, over the wires. Exactly.
The way I look at it is you don't want to mislead people into not voting, obviously. But I mean, they're just trying to prove that they think that was your intention.
Yeah, absolutely. They had to prove that there was an agreement, first of all, which is this is copy and pasting a meme. And is that an agreement?
Agreement with what?
Agreement with other people.
And there was none?
Because it's a conspiracy, it has to be 2 or more people.
And that's where you said they brought these dudes up into the court that you didn't know they were in a group chat that
they brought one guy.
Account was in?
Exactly.
I'm in like group chats that I don't read.
That's exactly right. You can mute them.
I've done that.
Yeah.
And I'm still in the chat because I'm like, I know people in that chat. I don't read it. It's
Right.
just going on. If they're talking about illegal stuff and I'm somehow implicated for not being involved in it, that's insane.
Right, exactly. And one of the reasons why they prosecuted me is because my account had a lot of followers. It was very influential at the time. And this is what, they don't care about people who aren't influential, right? They go after you for influential. So I was constantly getting invited into group chats. I was in dozens of group chats. And and this one in particular, one of them, people are dumping stuff into the group chat all day long, like 600 messages a day or something like that. And it's like, I just click mute on these chats, So there has to be an agreement and intent for you to be guilty of a conspiracy.
Is there evidence that you muted those chats?
So no, because the account's long gone. We don't have access to it anymore. That would have been interesting if we could log in and look and say, look, this chat's
Well, maybe
muted.
Elon
Twitter
will
might still
bring
have
back.
it. Yeah,
Right.
It's probably still there because if you delete it, the data might still be available.
Probably is.
Yeah. I'm sure it's there. I don't know if they would be able to find if this chat or that chat were actually muted.
Oh, you can see. If an account mutes a chat, you would know. The administrators would know.
If you don't
Really?
win the appeal, do you appeal again?
To the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Because like I said, this case is like bigger than me. because this is about this is about our liberties as Americans. So I think I'm obligated to appeal it. I mean, not only do I think I'm innocent, I don't think that I committed this crime that I'm accused of committing, but not only that's the principle of it. I mean, the idea, not only in my case, but we are arguing that you can't be arrested for something when your conduct is not clearly established to be illegal. And if they're going to use a statute and start arresting people, well, they can come up with a novel theory for something you said. And they say, well, we're not going to. We're only arresting people for misinformation about the right to vote. And it's like, you can trust us, right?
That's a 1A violation instantly. And they would literally just start arresting anybody because you're disinformation.
If they get away with it, that's exactly right. And they say, well, we have a First Amendment in this country. We can't make disinformation illegal, but they're constantly trying to subvert the First Amendment and the Constitution.
That's the real issue here is they need precedent to say disinformation is injury, therefore it's illegal.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't see how you would lose this on appeal unless the Supreme Court just says we don't care.
Yeah, if they don't take the case, right? But in this kind of case, you think they kind of have to
It's a big deal because a lot of people shared that. That's a big deal.
Yeah, a lot of people.
Well, I mean, the fact that you didn't even make it is another
Yeah.
significant.
What about the other people who were in 4chan who posted it? Nothing?
Nobody got arrested. They have some people that were unindicted co-conspirators, and the cooperator, he got arrested. He pled guilty. The cooperator pled guilty. So they twisted his arm, and he got up there and said basically the exact opposite of what he had always said, of what he told the FBI, of what he told journalists. Look, I just try to create chaos and freak people out and that kind of thing and get attention. Well, you post this meme, obviously. Part of the intent is that maybe the left will freak out about it, and that's exactly what happened. BuzzFeed, all these people covered this meme, and here's what's crazy about it too. Basically, when I posted it, it was on this small account because my original account had been suspended, and only 200 maybe people texted the number. I mean, a lot of people seeing what happened, they text Hillary for prison to the number or whatever.
Oh, there was an actual number?
Yeah, exactly. They went and subpoenaed the short code company that owned the short code. After this was picked up by BuzzFeed and Wired, then like 4,000 or 5,000 more people texted the number.
Oh, so they propagated the meme.
Wow.
They posted the meme.
Which was exactly the point. You post this kind of thing and then you see what happens,
But
right?
they posted it with context, but it still got more texts after they posted it with context because they propagated the meme.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. And so how many people, after you posted it, actually texted Hillary to that number?
So initially, it was only like 200 or even less.
Who said Hillary?
Oh, who actually said Hillary? Most of them said Hillary. A few of them said like Hillary for prison or whatever, that kind of thing. But yeah, how many people actually said Hillary? What the FBI always said is that 4,900 people texted the number. A lot of them said Hillary, but these are people that want to see what happened. For example, journalists were like, I texted the number and here's what happened. So yeah, it was really crazy.
And there was no one that ever wanted to testify that they had been one of the ones that...
Great point. So yeah, exactly. The FBI went around the Eastern District of New York, which is the district where I was prosecuted, knocking on people's doors. They looked them up. Did you text the number? Because they had the numbers. And people either said they didn't remember texting it or like, there's no way I would believe that. Are you kidding me? Like, I'm not an idiot. We have the 302s in discovery. Nobody, not one person said, oh yeah, I believe this and I texted the number.
Wow. So there were no one claimed injury.
Exactly.
Okay, so that would take injury off of the. So no one was threatened. Well, I guess that's undetermined. That's interesting.
No one was threatened. There was no threats made in the meme.
The argument would be that it's a threat to their ability to vote. But if that's only if they were to claim like, hey, you wronged me. I mean, you would need someone to at least,
Right.
I think, explain that they felt threatened.
Exactly. So with fraud statutes, you have to have an injured party, right? But in this case, you don't even have to have an injured party. You just have to have a conspiracy.
It's one or the other.
No, it's just conspiracy. That's all you need. The government, all they need to say is there was a conspiracy.
So that's like one guy saying, hey, share this meme, and then you doing it as opposed to you being like, cool meme and sharing it. That's the difference.
Exactly. So they just say I was in league with all these other people in these group chats.
I'm fascinated to find out about the mute status of your account, because if you had all that stuff muted, you weren't listening. It wasn't coming up in your feed.
Well, it wasn't the feed; it was the direct message groups, right?
Yeah, that's what I meant. In your messaging
exactly.
feed.
Direct message group. Yeah, exactly. And you get on there and it's like, oh, you have 800 new messages in this chat. It's like you just click that button, right?
Yeah, I got one now.
Scroll to the end.
I'm thinking about leaving the group chat. I'm not going to do it, guys, but I don't watch.
Well, so you might want to leave the group chat because you don't know, you might be held liable for something that they say in there.
I mean, it's guilt by
Millions of people
association.
in group chats. Yeah, you don't guilt by association in this country. That is not the way we run this thing. That was communist
Well, apparently
Soviet.
that is how we do things.
And what have I been saying about where we're currently at in this country? That you have a rogue mafia doing whatever they want. The left doesn't recognize it. They firebomb federal buildings and mostly get away with it. Only at the state level in Georgia are they actually getting pursued. And then it's the right that are just like, here I go.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why I've been saying, this is my issue with police. And I've been critical of the idea of backing the blue. And a lot of conservatives don't seem to get it. That when the example is the Proud Boys in New York. When Antifa started fights, and the Proud Boys, Antifa surrounded a speech at this Young Republicans Club or something, where Gavin McInnes was speaking, throwing things at people, screaming at people. Some Proud Boys came out and said, all right, let's go. And I would describe it as they engaged in mutual combat. Now, to be fair, some might say, well, when you're surrounded by Antifa on all these different blocks and they're harassing everybody, eventually you're just like, what do? You charge through them. Whatever. The point is they fought. When the cops showed up, the Proud Boys said, thank you, officer. Here's all of my information. Antifa said, run. And then the cops went, well, they're gone. So you guys turn around, put your hands behind your back. You're going to prison. And they got 4 years. These Proud Boys got 4 years because they decided to cooperate with police because they're good, honest Proud Boys. That's right. Good, honest, back the blue.
That's part of-
Thank you, officer, they said as they got marched off, ripped from their
That's the
children's arms.
anarcho-tyranny. Anarchy for the lawless and tyranny for the law-abiding.
And that's what we currently have right now. You had Steve Baker, the journalist, marched away in shackles for covering January 6th, where even in the charging documents, they're like, he's walking around with a camera narrating to himself what's going on. I'm like, yeah, that's called reporting. It's a guy who's with journalists and filming what's happening. And there were other journalists there. Another journalist didn't get charged. Why? Because he called them insurrectionists. So you basically have a mafia being like, you say what we want you to say, maybe it all goes away, huh? Maybe you're a journalist, you win some awards. But maybe you don't like what we do so much, we put you in prison. And that's exactly what's happening right now. And it's the Trump supporter just like, well, gee golly, I got to back the blow.
Yeah, I don't like where people are like working with law enforcement and getting busted for it when the people that run away from them aren't getting busted. Like that's really messed up because that incentivizes people to not comply, like even if they're doing good, because they don't want to get roped into some scheme.
Well, let's go to Super Chats. If you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, and head over to timcast.com, click join us to become a member and support this show because it's only possible because you guys are members. And I mean, literally, this show operates off of membership. We do not generate nearly enough in ads to make it go. So please consider becoming a member if you like the work that we do and share the show with your friends. Clint Torres says, howdy, people.
Hi, Clint.
Tim, rumors of my kidnapping on Friday were greatly exaggerated. I do not end up in someone's basement tied up upside down and naked with a ball gag in my mouth without having been paid good money for it.
How good? How good is good?
Small Mouse in a Big Field says, make the ATF a drive-through chain store. Yeah, you know, when I need alcohol, tobacco, firearms, I go to the ATF drive-through.
They had drive-through alcohol stores. Well, I guess you're selling you sealed bottles.
In Ohio, right?
Yeah.
You have to.
It was pretty well known.
Yeah, like you can't go in. They bring them to your car and they...
It was like a drive-in where you drive into this like a car wash thing, and then they like come out and give you.
Yep, that's crazy. Okay, Juan Castle says, Tim, how do you not get depressed with all the news? I don't understand the question.
I think I can answer. It's skating. I skated today. I was doing push shove-its, pop shove-its, push shove-its, yeah. Man, the core workout. There's nothing else you can get sad about when you're worried when you're focus on your body, when you're feeling your body. Like
I would simply say, how do you get depressed? This is the world. It's like saying, I figured out the truth today and it made me sad. Whereas I'm like, I read the truth all day, every day. How do you get sad? This is the world. It's like, this is baseline. You know, like when the news comes out that there's Skittles and rainbows, I'll be happy, I guess. Oof, got bad allergies, man. This pollen is.
You want some water? I got water.
Nah, it's not gonna. Brandon Long says, happy 1000th show.
Thanks, Brandon.
1,000 shows.
Big deal.
1,000.
It's a lot of shows.
Yeah. Crazy. It's been, we've been doing this for just over 3 years.
I love it.
Been doing the Tim Pool Daily Show podcast for going on, 8 years, 7 years?
We would do this for 4 years.
No,
Yeah,
it's
2020. It was during COVID.
That would make it just over 3 years.
Oh, it was 21?
No.
Man, my last 4 years have been kind of a blur for me, man.
So,
Yeah, COVID was 2020 because the COVID-19 was from the 2019.
Has it been 4 years then?
4 years. Thereabouts. You and Adam started
Oh, wow.
at like January, February, I think, of 2020.
it was the end of January.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow, I came up like March or April or something.
That's too many years.
That's a lot of years.
You're right. Yeah.
Here's to
4
4
years.
more.
4 more. 40 more. Yeah. We'll be old. We'll have no viewers left. Everyone will be dead, and everyone will be on Slim Slam, the new social media platform where you plug your brain into the Neuralink.
Dude.
And we'll be going like, what are these kids listening to?
Yeah. I'll plug into a Bacta tank when I'm like 600 with you if you want to neural net this show.
No, I'll be like, what's his face? Was it Mr. House or whatever from New Vegas?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll
do
just
that.
be like decrepit and wired into machine being
As
like,
long as we
hello.
can help people, man, I'm into it.
And they're going to be like, you guys are old. Your ideas are bad. It's time to die.
That's a good point.
Daniel Donasik says, can we repeal the 19th already or have Andrew Tate be the Secretary of Patriarchy with Fresh and Fit as deputies? That New York City story was nonsensical feminist garbage. What was that one? Did you guys see Wired claimed that Andrew Tate was a convicted human trafficker?
Yeah.
I read that one. Whoa. He's not convicted of anything.
Yeah, lawsuits.
I hope he sues him.
Yeah.
I really hope he does, man. I mean, I don't know what's going on with his assets, but I'm pretty sure he's still got money. I hope he just puts a lawyer on like $1 million retainer and says, just take care of it. Because you can't call someone a convicted human trafficker. That's defamation per se.
Yep.
Like Wired will be ordered to pay out instantly. They know they lost. That's wild. That got through their editorial, their editors. Let's go. David Violet says, maybe we could host private MTG tournaments at select Casper locations.
That'd be cool.
I mean, we could. I don't like Hasbro. You know, maybe we need to make our game and get the what is it? What is the game called that we're making? I don't remember.
The current one?
Culture War or something.
That was the first one we were working on. We've got a couple that we have worked on. The most recent one is Debate Me.
Debate Me. Right. That's it. Debate Me.
That one's good. It's simple too. I like it.
Yeah, so Debate Me is basically everybody gets 2 cards from it's a shared deck game. Everybody gets 2 cards, and you get 2 characters of varying acumen. And so, like, the most power, there's left, right, center, and establishment. And the most powerful of each is the prime. So, like, Obama is the prime establishment debater. And then it's like, you know, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, or whatever. And then on the left, you have, I don't know, who's a prominent leftist, like AOC or something. And then on the right, you have like Trump and Alex Jones. And then basically, the everybody will look at their cards, and if they have a good debate team, they will invite followers from their social media to the debate, and whoever wins the debate wins all the followers. You see how this works?
Just like real life.
Yeah. So basically. And there's a bunch of different formats, but everybody gets 2 cards. You look at your debate team. You say, okay, I'm going to invite all my followers, or I'm going to invite 10 followers because my team's not that good. And then someone says, okay, I'll invite 10 followers. And then the followers come to the debate. Then 3 more debaters come out to join the ranks. And whoever has the best 5-card debate team wins all the followers.
Who makes the best argument? What's the best argument? Then you find out. My argument is... Yeah.
And so, like, if you have Barack Obama and Alex Jones, you have 2 prime debaters. It's a pair of prime debaters. It beats a pair of level 10 debaters. And so for anybody who knows what poker is, they're like, you're just describing poker. That's right. The difference with this game is that there's going to be the base set, and then there's cards with special abilities.
Yeah, those are fun.
So some of the cards, there's like, I think for Kamala Harris, she's a like a level. So it's the way it works is there's levels 1 through 10, I think. Is that what we did? And then there's
1 through 10, and then there's like...
No, it's 1 through 12, and then the prime card. And prime is like it's basically an ace. And so we made with Kamala Harris, she's effectively, in terms of playing card, she is labeled a jack, but the special ability on it says this card can actually only be played as a 6. Oh no, is that Kamala? Yeah, I think. Oh no, I think that's Karine Jean-Pierre. Cool. Like, she is in the administration, but everyone knows she should not actually be of that, like, job.
Her value is not what her name tag says. Sorry, Corinne, I don't know you. I'd love to.
But no, but the thing is, that's not a bad
you can
thing.
just watch enough of the press conferences and
she's
But hold on,
cool,
listen.
Going out to the bar, get a drink with that girl, she cool.
The reason, so this is actually not a bad thing for anybody who knows poker. This means in one deck you can have 5 6s, which means it's easier to you can make 5 of a kind. Which actually, if you get 4 6s plus Green Jean-Pierre, you have an unbeatable hand. It beats a royal
really
flush.
Powerful card.
Yeah, it's extremely rare, but it would make the most power. It would make it. She would be the most powerful card as a component of the most powerful hand. It would beat effectively a royal flush,
As she does.
which I guess we would call we would call an administration. Like a royal flush would be like, you have Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, whatever. But basically, the actual function of the game is it's based on poker, but the cards are going to have varying rarities and. You construct the deck however you want. The cards are going to be nuts. Like the Golden God Emperor Trump card that we're making. The single card in and of itself is as strong as pocket aces. So it's like this card instantly will beat, is valued as 2 prime debaters. And we even have cards where it's like if you have this card, you win the debate upon revealing it. And some people are like, well, that's too powerful of a card to have in a game. It's a shared deck game, meaning you choose the cards you want in it because anyone could get any card. So if you don't like that card, don't play with it. So it's really like...
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so it's a wild game, and we've got most of the mechanics already set up and done. And it's really simple. It's basically just super simple poker, but with fun trading cards that can do silly things. So it's not meant to be played seriously like poker is. It's meant to be more silly like my Trump debates your Jordan Peterson. It'd be fun. Cody Justin Fannin says Carrie Lake has no principles. She caves to get political points. Abortion is murder. Yeah, it's funny because I love the Republicans admitting that abortion is a losing issue. It's the right move.
It's absolutely the right move. The idea that you're going to be able to win if you just are like taking the position we're going to outlaw abortion. It's a loser.
There's
it's not
so
going to
many
win.
people that won't vote for Joe Biden, but if they're told that it's going to make abortion illegal, they will vote for Joe Biden. So don't do that. You got a lot of voters that don't want to vote for that guy right now.
A lot of the voting that happens nowadays is voting against people. Like people didn't vote for Joe Biden, they voted against Donald Trump. People didn't vote for Donald Trump, they voted against Hillary Clinton.
Trump's abortion stance, he should have come out and been like, my official position on abortion is that it should be completely legal. We got to bring back Roe v. Wade. It was a big mistake, and anyone can get an abortion whenever they want because Republicans will still vote for him.
No.
And then Democrats are going to be like,
wrong.
what? And there are already message group chats where people are saying, don't worry about what Trump is saying. We know his record on abortion. What he's saying is just to win to win votes, and we know what he would do with power. So Trump just needs to come out and be like, no, we want all the states to legalize it. Women should be allowed to get abortions at any point, even after the baby's born. I don't care. Quite literally, do whatever you want.
It's something that we say over and over, but Trump is a New York City Democrat. Yeah. That's from 10 years ago. That's it. Like he is not in any way a conservative. The left is insane and anti-American. So Donald Trump being like, you know what? I don't hate America means that he is like the conservative. That's all it is. It's the whole, the left is so far left, so the center seems like it's right meme.
I was surprised when he ran as a Republican in 2016. I thought he was going to either go independent or maybe even Democrat at first, but the Democratic Party is already wrapped up.
Ben Hickson says, do you record the show separate to the live stream as contingency? Stop funny business. If so, where would you upload clean recording? We do, and the clean recording is used for all podcast platforms. So when you listen on Apple or Spotify or whatever it is, you Google Podcasts, that is the clean recording, not the streamed version. Let's see what we have. Juan Castle says, cheers to episode 1000. God bless you all.
God bless you.
Yeah. Grofty says, spin that UFO, Ian, and roll that beautiful bean footage.
What is that?
That's
I don't know.
UFO
big
spinning.
beans.
I'm going to spin it till it starts to wobble. Look at that.
All right,
dude.
I think
it's wobbling because you're aiming the duster at a downward angle.
Can you get it going? Do you ever watch a thing spin so fast that it explodes?
You need to keep it aimed directly at the side. So what happens is this thing is levitating, and when you blow down, it pushes one side, right? Yeah. And that sends that that downward motion wobbling back and forth, which limits the amount of spin the thing can achieve because it's going to wobble out of control. So if you put it right at the edge,
Spinning it in reverse.
yeah.
Slowing it down.
Nice.
It's like magic.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
The issue then is it spins so fast that it's trying to it pushes it out of the magnetic field.
Wow.
So that's spinning much faster because I wasn't pushing down on it.
I think was it a magnet spinning and then it exploded. Did you guys see that video? It's just spin, and there's like its own.
Yeah, they use
spinning.
they use like a water pressure thing.
I should find
There's a video where they take a skateboard wheel and they use a water jet,
Yeah.
like a water cutter, and it spins it so fast the wheel, and this is hard urethane, just
It's awesome.
explodes. It gets bigger and bigger and then just blows up. Wild. Let's go. Greg Duvier says, I believe it is 2020. I believe it is in 2020, being an All That Remains fan. The YouTube algorithm showed my clips of Phil's episode. I've been watching since. Oh, okay. I see. All right. We had one. I got to read. Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says, it's nice knowing you all. For my steaks will stay medium and my eggs will stay over easy. It's better than punched in the face by male rage. Go 1,000.
Go 1,000, Raymond.
They're running stories now where they're like, due to the bird flu outbreak, you must cook your steaks medium well or well done. Your eggs must be cooked all the way through. No more over easy or sunny side up.
Wow, weren't those the same people talking trash on Trump's steaks back in the day too?
Look,
Not to say they aren't bad. I wouldn't cook a steak like that. But
That's the recommendation now is to have no runny eggs at all. Great.
no runny eggs, but and no soft boiled. It's got to be hard boiled or scrambled, and steaks have to be cooked all the way through. But as everybody knows, once you cook the steak through, you just throw it in the garbage because it's ruined.
Yeah, because it's ruined.
So what they're basically saying is eat garbage, which I won't do. So I will continue to eat my steaks rare. Honestly, just give it to me blue. Just don't even cook it. You know what I mean? Like pan sear it, just and then here you go. Just raw.
I'm thinking about that restaurant I told you about earlier. I don't want to mention it on air because I want to go there this weekend.
All right.
And then I'll tell you about it next week.
The Lion says the first Timcast IRL episode I watched was not an episode. It was a tour of the van. The first Timcast video I ever watched was about the Oberlin University bakery case. It's been a wild ride, Tim.
Oh, wow.
Thank you so much for watching. Yeah. Timcast IRL, what the original idea was, I could do the Tim Pool Daily Show on the road in the van, which is sitting outside. And so that means I would have my daily podcast every day. And then once I could drive around and go wherever I wanted. And then what I would do is I'd stop at various like universities, put up a table, and then do Timcast IRL, meaning I would just have general conversations with people about whatever they wanted to talk about. And then COVID happened. Mm-hmm. So here we are. Now I'm trapped in a box and I can't leave.
I mean, you still have the van.
Yeah, but IRL is something different. So it's like the first thing I did was like, here's a tour of the van, and instantly got like 70,000 subscribers to the new channel. And I was like, it's going to be travel. It's going to be on the ground talking with regular people. And then COVID happened. Mm-hmm. So then I was like, we can't go anywhere or do anything. So we'll just, the original idea for the show was actually to talk about UFOs, ghosts, murder mysteries, and nonsense.
We had the Chupacabra lined up. We were looking
We
at
had
Weird
the,
Wild, we were going to call it or something like that.
Well, that was
we
a general
could still
idea.
do some crazy.
Well, Shane's doing that one now.
Yes. Inverted World Sundays. It's going to be on Sundays.
Yes.
Yeah,
And it's going to be like people calling in, telling their stories. So it's going to be really fun. But the original idea, like one of the first videos, you can go way back and look at these. They're all on the channel. Was Skinwalker Ranch. Just generally talking about weird, fun things. And then we didn't have any guests because like the lockdown. But early on, we had a couple of guests and we talked about dating and just random stuff. The idea was, I was just like, well, we can't go anywhere because it's like getting crazy with the lockdown. So what can we do? And I was like, I can make more segments than just the ones I'm already doing on subjects that are unrelated to news and politics. And then for a variety of reasons, the show was not that. And
those are such warm days, man. I moved out to your place like while you and Adam were doing the show, and I was like baking bread while you guys were doing the show. And I remember after the show, they'd come in, we'd be like, yo, let's play magic. And we'd all hang out. That was so fun.
Yeah, well, that was also the
Love
show
you,
ended
Adam.
at 10. Now we do an hour-long after show. So become a member at timcast.com because quite literally, it's an entirely different podcast Monday through Thursdays at 10 p.m. where people call into the show. And I wonder if there, I don't know, we got to do better marketing. I bet if we did good marketing, we'd have way more members and be doing a lot more.
Oh yeah, I think so too. Because we got Gamer Maids, we got Pop Culture Crisis, we have huge shows on this network, and we got Inverted World coming up, and it's also we got a lot of content. Now it's just about
Pop
making
Culture
you see
Crisis
it.
is doing really well. They have
Yeah.
over 100,000 subs now.
I think they just hit their 500th episode.
And they're
yesterday.
and what are they hitting, like 1,500 concurrents on their
Yeah,
streams now?
we do between 1,000 and 1,500 usually when I'm there.
Wow.
Shout out to
It's
Brett
crazy.
Zasovic and Mary Morgan.
Yeah.
I'll be there tomorrow and Wednesday and Thursday. So
It's all about the grind, man. I remember when they started and they were getting like 100, 200.
Yeah.
Then there was one day where it was like they were 1,000. Then I tuned in a month or two ago and it was like 1,400, and I was like, they're killing it.
Consistent.
game,
I
man.
love those guys actually.
Yeah. I think Mary is out on the West Coast or something right now.
yeah.
You're filling in for Mary? Mm-hmm. Cool.
Gaming Slosh says, can you have Carrie Lake on again to explain her newfound position on abortion? See new press release. Thanks for all you do. Is that where she's like, I agree with Trump? Here's what I would do. If I was a conservative who was staunchly pro-life and said abortion should be banned, and then Trump came out and said, no, it should go to the states, I would not come out and go, oh, wow, it should be. I'd come out and say, I've long held deep convictions about opposing abortion, but I recognize the realities are going to be, we have to respect the state's limit. And while that's not necessarily the position I would like to see, it's the reality that I will accept, and I will take Donald Trump's lead on the issue. That being said, I am not staunchly pro-life. I do think abortion is wrong, especially in the instance of literally just killing babies because they're using it as contraception. But I think Trump is wrong. I do not believe it is a state's issue. I do not believe it is morally consistent to say that you believe it's murder, but that also states can decide when murder is allowed to happen. Like, well, it's a woman's choice whether or not she kills someone. No, it isn't. So the Supreme Court needs to answer the question. And Ian, I got 50 billion messages from everybody about your statement where you said, can you prove a baby's alive? And they all
Wait a
said,
minute. No, I babies, you mean infant in the womb?
in the womb. You
I
said,
always say that's living. I don't
Okay.
just say, is it a human?
and so you said, until you can like read the baby's mind of it saying, I don't want to die.
Yeah.
There are tons of videos where they did ultrasounds during abortions and the baby fights for its life.
I've seen those.
So then it's already proven to you.
Well, I'm talking about the really little ones, like 20 weeks, 25 weeks. They might have pain tolerance, but when they can think and they can communicate and tell you, like really let you know
I think
in a human way, not just in an animal's
I think
junk.
trying not to die.
Well, it's like
That
qualifies.
is not like this is so outside of the realm of possibility because when you're first born, you can't even see like your eye. You don't have the ability to conceptualize things. Your brain doesn't. Like you couldn't communicate with a baby. Like if you could like if you had telepathy, you wouldn't be able to get something back.
I think
that
you could.
No,
I think you could. It might not be English.
You couldn't. You might be like. If this were real, right? Because I don't believe any of this. I think this is all make believe. But if you could telepathically communicate with a baby,
Neural net, for
it
instance.
would be emotions you could get, and that's it. Because there's no larger concepts. It takes words to understand concepts. That's how we think. The reason there's no
Okay, then let
in
me add,
Hawaiian.
let's read some more
If
super
you could
chats.
sense fear from the baby in the womb with
You
a
can
neural-
watch it.
I know that it jerks and moves. That's like an animalistic reaction to getting jabbed. Any
Dude, this
animal would
is-
do that.
Okay. Ian,
Yeah,
there's
let's
no
see.
answer that will satisfy you.
Well, I've talked about this for hours. Yeah, I'm not
saying,
trying to like solve it. I'm just
You're like, unless the baby can tell you, I don't know how else, like, it hasn't learned to speak. Babies can't talk for like they can't communicate effectively for a year or whatever. So a baby in the womb resisting being aborted, I think, is about as close as you could possibly get.
It's likely that if you were to go in and try to like reach in with forceps to try to help the baby be born, right? No malicious intent. You're not trying to kill it. Like if the baby could actually communicate, it'd be like, holy crap, I'm terrified. Stop.
It's too cold.
So like you're not gonna
All right,
get
let's-
like it's yeah.
Let's read some more super chats. We got Michael Bullock who says, it's not that conservatives would say there is no longer a government. More like, quote, our government no longer operates under its imposed limits, and we invoke the duty of the people under the Declaration of Independence. I disagree. I don't agree, Michael, because conservatives already are saying the government no longer operates. They've been saying for years it's a corrupt mafia system and it's a two-tiered system of justice. And for 4 years, they've been claiming that Joe Biden's not even the real president and no one has invoked anything under the Declaration. I do not believe that'll happen. What is more likely to happen is there's going to be some morbidly obese redneck guy living in the sticks is going to be like, ain't no government as far as I can tell. We had a bunch of people come in and steal everything from us. Best get the boys rounded up so we can stop the bandits from taking our donkeys again. And then they're going to go out with their guns and they're going to form their own patrols, their own watch groups. And then when the federal government comes, they're going to be like, I know nothing about nothing. I know who you are. You ain't welcome here. And they're going to be like, we're the government. I ain't no idea what you're talking about.
That's why you need decentralized peace, because if they don't have phones and they really have literally no communication and have no idea who these people are coming to take stuff, that's a real problem. That's a real problem. It's not ideological. It's a legitimate de facto. They don't know what's going on. You can't force them to take information. You can't like inject it. If they don't want a phone, if they don't want to participate, and that's why we built this society as we have with local government.
The issue I'm saying is, I'm not worried about a moment when conservatives stand up and go, I hereby declare the government is corrupt and declare a redress of grievances under our sacred duty. And then a bunch of conservatives go, hear, hear, and bang their steins together. And then they say, the new Sons of Liberty is born. 1776 will rise again. No, that's meaningless to me. What's scary is far leftists firebombing federal buildings, most of them not getting criminally charged, roving gangs taking over city streets on numerous occasions. And then the final straw on the camel's back is people on the right who live in small towns. And you know, I drove through the panhandle of Oklahoma, and there are some small towns, really, like 120 people, and there's nothing for 50 miles. It's wild when you really get out there in the middle of nowhere. And I'm talking about these places where they have a bunch of guns, and they're just like, look, we had some guy come in and kill somebody. We had another guy come in and stole a tractor. A gun's gone missing. There is no sheriff. There is no FBI. There is no law enforcement. They don't answer anymore. They don't, we call them on the phone. They're not there. What do we do? And then some guy goes, I think we're going to have to form our own patrol. And they go, okay. And then they have their own patrol.
Yeah.
And then one day when a federal officer is driving through, they stop them and say, can I help you? And he goes, yeah, what is this? He's like, I'm a FBI. And they go, I don't know what you're talking about, sir. You're going to have to turn this car around and leave because you're not welcome to come through here. We have emergency going on and we've set up a checkpoint. And then he's going to say, I'm the government. You have to listen to me. And they say, no, you're going to turn around right now because we don't know who you are. That's what I'm talking about. When the right engages in effectively what the left is already doing, whereas they begin operating as though there is no government. In Seattle and Portland, they march around their streets with rifles and they point them at people. There was one instance where a bunch of far leftists were armed with AR-15s and they were blocking intersections, and a car pulled up and they pointed the rifles at the guy. So he drew his pistol and he pointed it back at them. When the right starts acting in that way, then it's just, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to the members only show. So smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with all your friends, and head over to timcast.com right now. The members only show will be live in a couple of minutes. You don't want to miss it. And we can use support as members because that's what makes everything work. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL. You can follow me personally at Timcast. Doug, do you want to shout anything out?
Yeah, absolutely. So this case is extremely expensive. You can go to memedefensefund.com to donate. Like I said, if we go to the Supreme Court, it's going to get extremely expensive. So everybody, please go to memedefensefund.com, or you can go to my Twitter, Doug Mackey Case, and there are alternative ways to donate, crypto, there's Give, Send, Go, that kind of thing. So everyone, please go there and chip in so that we can fight this. We can win the case, but, I need support.
Are you looking for to hit an upper limit?
Right now, I would say we need like $500,000.
Cool.
Yeah.
I am Phil That Remains on Twix. I'm Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. The band is All That Remains. You can follow us on Apple Music, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, YouTube, the internet. And don't forget, the left lane is for crime.
I'm Ian Crossland. See you guys. I love you guys in the chat, so thank you for chatting. It's really, really, really entertaining. It's nice to have this in front of me while we're talking. I try to get distracted. I almost talk about the chat sometimes, but and also to all you guys listening that aren't in the chat, come chat sometime. But also bless you and thank you for listening and enjoying the show. I had a really great time. Thanks for coming, Doug. And I want to shout out your defense fund. It's Meme Defense Fund. memedefensefund.com.
Exactly.
Cool stuff. See you later, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm Serge.com. I've been watching this show for a long time, since like right after the pandemic began, and I'm just stoked to be here. I was in the chat too. You can make it, guys. Anyways, cheers.
We'll see you all over at timcast.com. Thanks for hanging out.